across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
And good afternoon. Yes, welcome to the home of common sense. Thank you to Peter Cargwell. He's back tomorrow morning. Flu season. It's flu. The festive season, forget it. Another F is on the block. The flu season continues. NHS under huge pressure with some patients, it's that bad, being treated in cupboards. They're so overwhelmed. There are now warnings that this is the last chance to get protected. Yeah, before Christmas. The Health Secretary, Wes Streeting, says the tidal wave of flu plus doctors going on strike could crash the service. One NHS leader this week saying that you need to get your masks out. While the NHS, of course, continues to have problems, it does beg that question, is lockdown round 2 on the way for yearly flu? Will the flu mean lockdowns and masks? We'll have more on that story as well. Also this afternoon, a leaked draft of the Donald Trump national security strategy allegedly urges Austria, Italy, Hungary and Poland to leave the EU and pivot towards Washington. A partial draft already warns of civilization erasure from woke migration and censorship, and apparently the full file goes even further, advocating breaking away from the EU. We'll have more on that story as well. Oh, by the way, are you prepared to go to war over Ukraine? That detail's coming up too. And a lorry load of migrants, 13 of them in all caused 5 miles worth of queues after the police stopped it on the M40 near Bicester, closing 2 lanes. Thames Valley Police detained 13 and arrested the driver on suspicion of immigration offences. It's not just boats, it's cars, it's trucks and possibly e-scooters as well. These characters will jump on flipping anything with a motor, I'm telling you. Lawnmower, maybe, who knows. Lots to get through. 0344 499 1000. I'm very sorry, I forgot to stick the mask on to do the show. Can you hear me okay? If you're watching in vision, what you're seeing now is a responsible human being. I'm responding to a pandemic. I'm responding to flu. I'm responding to what could be the last chance saloon for our NHS. If I'm sounding a little bit muffled, it's because I'm wearing a mask. What do you do, criticise me or something? I'm telling you, if you're not masked up, why not? There's a killer flu out. Oh, I can't be arsed with this, good Lord. Where's Dolan's scissors? They're on the way, apparently. There is a killer flu out there, and the last thing we need is you filthy little germ ferrets spreading your viral load over your fellow Brits. I'm telling you now, it's a crime scene out there. Forget COVID. This isn't any old flu. It's not a snotty nose. It's not a bit of a cough. This is super flu. Superflu is back, and it's causing a hell of a problem for the NHS. A challenge unlike anything seen since the pandemic, says Wes Streeting. He said the NHS was in a precarious situation and has warned that next week's planned strikes by resident doctors could be the Jenga piece that collapses the tower. Superflu. The tower is collapsing. The world is going to end. Will this flu inevitably mean lockdowns and, there it is, masks? I actually had to go into Boots to buy this prop, by the way. And I checked with my accountant. I cannot claim that. £3.50 for 5 masks. This thing, this little bit of material, as you can see, there it is, that will stop you getting anything. You could have somebody leprosy, anything. You won't get anything if you wear one of these. That's amazing. These are incredible, even though they're in a little bag in a local chemist. They will stop the lot. So stick your mask on. Don't go outside. I don't know what sort of person would go outside. I'm currently broadcasting from under my bed. We've managed to make it look as if it's a studio. I think we've got away with it. So that's how you've got to roll over the next few weeks. If you want to save the NHS, if you want to save your fellow Brits, if you want to stop people getting contaminated and killing your own grandmother, put your mask on, you filth bag. It's that straightforward. 0344 499 1000. Will you be wearing yours this Christmas? Have you bought a festive one? Has yours got a picture of Ronan Keating on the front? I don't know, whoever you like. You can get novelty masks. They're out there for everybody. Masks and lockdowns. Is this inevitably how it's going to look? Because you may remember, it wasn't that long ago when we actually had the old Bill going around the streets with megaphones. Do you remember this? I'm going to just give you a brief reminder of a man who became known affectionately to us as Megaphone Cop.
Guys, you can't stay on the green. Can you all go home? Can you all go home, please? It's not a holiday. It's a lockdown, which means you don't just come in and sunbathe. Can you please just leave?
That's a big open field, that's massive. Arguably the safest place you could be was in that field. It was beautiful. The sun was shining. It was a lovely day. Some folk were just putting their feet up, reading a book, having a bit of a break from whatever it was they were doing. Arguably the safest place you could have been. But there it was. That's how they rolled back then. Are we about to get something similar happening now? Do you wear a mask? Are you a mask wearer? You may well be somebody that has... I mean, there's a few people, and you never want to ask in case somebody has got, you know, an issue where wearing a mask is right for them. But you do, since lockdown, still see people once in a while on a train or a bus masked up. So presumably there are reasons for that. Maybe it had a kind of contagion back in the day where people got used to it. A friend of mine literally said to me, he said, I quite like wearing a mask. And, you know, he doesn't wear one now, but he sort of enjoyed the prey, he said it wasn't really about COVID. It was just about the fact that there's a lot of smells and germs around anyway. So lob a mask on. 0344 499 1000. Serious question. Where do you think this story is going? Do you sense that it is going in the direction, bearing in mind all of the headlines we're hearing, the term superflu is there? Are we going to be in that situation where we got those warnings from politicians? Remember those when we had every politician telling us on a daily basis that we had to stay indoors and don't go anywhere. Have a listen to this, because this became almost the mantra of the day, and it went on for flipping ever.
This is a vital update about coronavirus.
From this evening, I must give the British people a very simple:
Stay alert, control the virus, save lives.
I've never felt more proud to be a Brit than hear my government looking after me in that kind of way back in the day. Is it about to return? Well, some say it might be. One senior NHS official only this week said this.
When you were talking about it being like COVID, I think we need to get back into the habit that if you are coughing and sneezing, but you're not unwell enough to not go to work, then you must wear a mask when you're in public spaces, including on public transport, to stop the chances of you giving your virus to somebody.
I've got a funny feeling he doesn't really know what he's talking about. But do you? Are you wearing one? Will you wear one? Is this how it's going to be? Are you sensing another lockdown? Here's a man that's been locked down since 2019, Steve N. Allen, the comedian and broadcaster, still in that same room, Steve. I mean, fair play to you. This is like the kind of contemporary version of David Blaine, but in a slightly bigger box. And well done for, I don't know how many days you've done now, hundreds of thousands of them.
It's quite a lot, and it's not even a COVID thing. It's just I don't get invited anywhere. So I thought, why not?
And it suits you. There's a sort of hermit-esque kind of existence is fine.
Now they bring food to your front door. I don't even know I would leave the house. And yes, to answer your question, I am wearing a mask right now. Not on my face, but feels good. Feels really good.
I like it. I like it. What are you making of this, though, Steve? Because the language is frighteningly similar.
Yeah, I'm getting the old PTSD flashback. I think as a nation, we all have PTSD from what it was like. If you think about it, it was horrible to be locked down. We all kind of almost styled it out a bit too much because we had the ability to cope and just think, I'll bury this emotional trauma for later, like we all do, because we're Brits. But I think now, even hearing a story and the details of what was happening back then, giving me the old feelings, because it was horrible, wasn't it? You know, if I take my kids to the playground and my lad says, I want to go on the next slide, please, that phrase will trigger me. It's horrible. But I hope this is just big words to try and scare the doctors into not striking. Because it could be that, and if so, fair play, that's a good move. Because if the doctors were like, turns out there's a bit of flu hanging around, we won't strike right now, they could actually start to move the dial on how much the nation now doesn't like doctors. Like, the first time there were strikes, the nation was like, these doctors, they're saving lives. The public opinion of the doctors is just plummeting because of all these strikes. Well, so if we stop that, you get a nice threat of flu and then no strikes, that would be the only outcome to this that's going to be good. I don't want to be forced to do anything again. I also don't, if you want to wear a mask outside because you're sneezing, fair enough. Because that's kind of what they do in Japan, isn't it? That's what we hear, that if you are absolutely lousy with the flu, wear one because your face looks rough anyway. But don't be forced to. That guy said you have to wear a mask. No, not have. Could choose to. Let's settle on that.
Yes, indeed. And I was slightly perturbed when I tried to look to fact check things if I can. I often follow the VT editor of Panorama to see if there's anything, to authenticate what I've been reading. And then I moved to the BBC website, and they put an interesting line on there. They said this is the worst flu situation for the NHS since records began. And I thought, well, I'm going to read on because I'd like to sort of compare it sort of century on century or decade on decade. And then it said the records began in 2021. So I thought, well, you can't really use the phrase since records began and then the next sentence is they only started 4 years ago. Doesn't really work journalistically, but nonetheless, it's a bad one, apparently. Every year is a bad one. I can't ever remember there being a winter, Steve, where the headlines, whether it's The Guardian or The Times, whatever it happens to be, were not, NHS bracing itself for bad winter of flu.
Yeah. Do you remember 2022? It was the worst season since records began.
Yes.
Because it began in 2021. So that was definitely the worst one. And what a winter that was.
Terrible.
But you're right, the headlines are always, NHS on the brink. I'm sure it is on the brink. It's not particularly efficient at the way that it works. And when you get the extra people needing hospital care, it pushes it up even more. But you're right. It's the boy who cried wolf, isn't it? We're so used to the headlines. Like, this will collapse the NHS. Well, then you're going to have to come to me when it's collapsed because you've threatened it so much now. The threat doesn't have the impact that it should. And it won't collapse the NHS. What are you telling me? Like, we literally went through a pandemic of a novel virus and it didn't collapse the NHS.
It didn't.
So this will be absolutely... It won't be fine, but it won't collapse it.
And also, the whole point of, the whole controversy over the mask thing, you'd think by now, because, there are... Obviously, there's a big body of thought that perhaps we overplayed the efficacy of wearing a mask. And I think most people are sort of in agreement it won't stop you getting COVID. You think by now, if these things were the one-size-fits-all answer to catching it, spreading it, whatever, that there would be at least one government sort of infomercial out there, with a scientist explaining, yep, these do actually work, and this is why they work. Nobody has ever come out and said that, ever.
But they don't work for that, do they? This is not why people in Japan wear them. What they do, and this seems believable, is they stop any snot you're sneezing out. Any fully aerosolized bit of inner snot that's making its way 3 foot over there will be stopped at your mask. And that seems believable because I use this different technology called hand. You know how you can sneeze into your hand? And again, I'm teaching this to my 3-year-old. If you cough and sneeze, put it in your hand. The mask basically does that, but without having to lift your hand up. And that's probably where the science stops. Maybe it's slightly more efficient than a hand. I don't know. I'm sure, as you say, you could go to BBC Verify and find out. But, that's all it is. It won't stop you catching a thing. It might stop you flobbing your flob quite as far.
Indeed. The only upshot of these, Steve, was it was the first time, the most, I would say, aesthetically attractive Bromley has ever looked back in the day when that was the thing to wear.
Since records began.
Since records began, let's have a look at this story. A leaked draft US national security strategy allegedly outlines a Trump-era Make Europe Great Again plan. Within this, it is suggested that Austria, Italy, Hungary and Poland quit the EU and pivot slightly closer to Washington. Mr. Trump spoke about the EU just the other day. Let's have a listen.
I think they're weak, but I also think that they want to be so politically correct. I think they don't know what to do. Europe doesn't know what to do.
He doesn't know what to do. It's a terrible, terrible not-to-do-ness. That is Donald Trump, of course. What are you making of this, Steve? And I can see Trump sort of for a giggle going, get the hell out of that basket case.
Yeah, I don't like it because I think what I liked about what happened is you can ask a nation what it wants to do, and that's absolutely fine. I don't like the idea of another nation telling other nations what to do. Look, even if you, in theory, if you end up agreeing with what they're saying, you think, you know what, the EU should be a bit trimmed down. If ever it had a heyday, it was before there were 27 countries involved. When you get your when you think of the EU, you kind of think of like the core four of them, don't you?
Yeah.
I mean, admittedly, we were in there back then, but the kind of EU-y look, those ones. Fair enough. Maybe you should trim down, especially the countries he's listing having a moment of leaning a little bit more to the right with their leadership, and maybe it would be a time for a referendum or two. Yeah. But I don't want him to be the one saying it. All of these countries should be in charge of their own future.
Well, that's the point, isn't it? It's almost a very sort of anti-Trump position. Trump has taken an anti-Trump position on this, telling other countries what they should be doing. I mean, he's sort of specialising a little bit in that. I mean, it's kind of... He's got a curious Chinese-esque way of running the United States, and that's a reality. He's got this stuff kicking off with Venezuela. You've got Putin wringing the head of Venezuela, going, "We're with you, brother, don't worry," which kind of somehow, I mean, does that dissipate or dilute at least the interesting newfound relationship between Trump and Putin? I don't know. But it's not the sort of thing, Trump's whole point was that I'm not a globalist. We do our own thing, you do yours. And that's fine. Take it at face value. So it's a little at odds with that thinking that he would be tinkering with 4 other countries, at least, in the EU.
Yeah, you're right. I'm amazed the MAGA base are going for it, because all of the stuff, the promise was that it would be America first, this non-interventionist way of doing things, not really getting involved in wars. That was the argument, wasn't it? These forever wars are so terrible and they're wasting America's money. And I kind of saw the point. I agreed with a lot of that. Again, it's not my position to vote, but I'd understand why you would vote for that. And then he gets in office and starts trying to rule the world. So it does seem weird, but somehow he's getting away with it. He's pulling the base with him somewhat. The only thing he's lost the MAGA base with has been the Epstein files, which is weird. Like even though they like the idea of an American first non-interventionist thing, they're agreeing, because it's been framed as the Venezuela thing is a war on drugs, which makes it look more like a home thing. I'm not sure how he'll spin this EU thing to the American crowd, because really it shouldn't be anything to do with them at all. What would they want him to put his focus on what we're doing?
I was going to say, has he really got time to worry about how you run 4 other countries? That would be extraordinary. Stay with us. Steve Van Allen is with us. It's a Friday. We're just a couple of weeks away from the big festive day. There is a flu season lurking its way around the place, snaking its way into our offices, hospitals, and offices for that matter, and shops and schools and goodness knows where else. Is lockdown on its way? Are you wearing a mask? What do you sense when you hear all of the kind of speak which is being ratcheted up, frankly, in it's a super flu. It's not a normal flu, it's a super flu, kids. 0344 499 1000. This is Talk. the Talk app. You can watch, catch up and listen to all your favourite shows and podcasts anytime, anywhere, all on the Talk app. Watching and listening to Talk just got easier. There's now only one place for the home of common sense. So head over to your App Store or Google Play and search Talk now.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
24 minutes after 1 o'clock. Steve N. Allen is still with us. We hear about the boat migrants all the time, Steve. It's a daily and hourly subject, of course. We're now on to the lorry migrants. Police stopping a lorry on the M40 yesterday near Bicester. 2 lanes closed. 5 miles of tailbacks. It's the strange thing about a high-profile case. They didn't need to do that. You could have just stopped on the hard shoulder and not shut anything. But nonetheless, the optics were clearly important. 13 migrants were found inside. This happened at 10 o'clock in the morning. 4 hours worth of closures. They were all arrested. They were all detained. And the lorry driver was arrested for potential immigration offences. And, of course, I think you can get fined per migrant, even if it's not your fault.
Yeah, I remember, because this is what I like about this story. It's retro, isn't it? Do you remember we used to talk about this all the time? Lorries full of migrants, people in the back of lorries, the stories of what it was like to be a lorry driver and how you'd have to do the search before you try and make the crossing, and they'd worry about people running out in the last minute. And all of that disappeared. It's now a positive retro. Like you talked about COVID earlier on, we hate going back there, but these were simpler times, because what you like about the system of lorries is it's so much easier to contain it. This actually seems to be a good news story, as much as the tendency is to try and complain about, whether things are being done. You look at the footage, there's more than one police car there, which is amazing. Normally to get 2 cop cars turning up, you've got to write a tweet. So it's great that they've actually managed to get people there. They've been caught. People are going to be hopefully prosecuted on this. They've been arrested for immigration offences. The people who seem to be riding the boats, or whatever the appropriate verb is, the gangs aren't being smashed. So at least with a lorry, you get the guy at the front who's in charge of the lorry, you can arrest him. Sure. The people in the back are all contained. It's so much easier. So they've actually done something good here.
Is there not anybody... Yeah, I mean, that's a good point. You don't get 15 police cars turn up at Dover every time a boat arrives, but, with many more people on it, as it turns out. But you do get 15 if it happens on the M40. Is there not anybody in charge of those boats? It's not like a bloke with the little motor at the back, like steering it somewhat?
It's got to be.
Is he not the equivalent of the lorry driver?
Yeah, there's got to be. So the guy with the big stick on the gondola. There's always someone who's in charge of the vessel. Yeah. They've not just set it. It's not just like a message in a bottle and they just push it out and hope it's in the right direction.
I mean, this isn't entirely new, of course, because I remember when you and I worked in a Kent-based broadcasting outlet. These kind of stories of people who are coming back in their cars. I remember one woman, I think in Faversham or something, who, got back from a trip to France, opened her car, opened her picnic hamper, and Pedro popped out. And so, how did he get in there? He was a very nervous young man. He gave it a go and succeeded. And these things were happening. You wonder, how often is this happening? Is this like a daily thing? We just don't... Are these the hidden numbers in the migration story we don't hear about?
But you think you'd still hear about that? I suppose it was right up our wheelhouse because we were broadcasting in the area, but that was such a good story, wasn't it? That if it happened, surely newspapers would still want to cover it. The idea that you get back from the old booze cruise, you go nip down to Calais to get some cheap wine and come back with a guy in the back of your car, which is, maybe that's what you're into, I don't know. There'll be a subset of people who are very much doing that, but they're not the ones we talk about. If that were happening, surely we'd be covering it, because that's the kind of story that impacts people's lives. Like, that woman will remember that happening. The idea of someone in your boot when you open it is far scarier than all the rest of it. So I just presumed they got better at it. That was the deal, wasn't it? That lorry crossings were not efficient enough, and they upgraded. They put in some extra security around Calais as well, didn't they? Which made it not as easy to do. So they found the boat solution. So what you should do is make boat crossings not as easy to do, and then they find another thing. It's always an arms race. But for some reason, we just plateaued. Maybe it's because we just thought we'd giving money to France would be the solution, and then just failed to stop any of the boat issue. So we've never had to move on to the next one.
And they've got those massive X-ray machines now that can X-ray the entire truck, which I would imagine if they'd done this particular truck, it would have looked like Cirque du Silhouette or something in the back of there. I don't know what was going on. I know some hand puppets, and I don't know what else would have been happening. But it's apparently a dead cert, and it tells them straight away. But I don't know how often they utilise that.
Yeah, well, you'd hope that they're using it a lot, and that's why people are trying to cross through other methods.
In
some ways, it's almost nice if they did go back to the old way of doing it, because, as I say, it's like a self-contained... You just drive the lorry to the police station, and job done. Do you know what I mean? We could actually not need to deploy as many cop cars. They bring their own vehicle.
Yes, and of course, if we don't get any of that, we don't get any more of those border force programmes, which would be, frankly, what else am I going to watch at 11 o'clock at night when there's nothing else on the telly? I used to relish in watching a Chinese woman with an overzealous suitcase full of about 2 tons of kangaroo meat on the Australian border force show. I mean, there's been none of that anymore, so we need 1 or 2 of them just to liven things up.
Yeah, I love it when they speak really good English until the moment the massive bag of duck necks found, and all of a sudden they forget the English.
It just disappears like that. Final one, I think this is really interesting, and I don't know whether people would call this just the inevitable future or something rather horrifying. This is Europol's 48-page report that has sketched out sort of plausible scenarios for about in 10 years' time. So by 2035, we will have a robot-saturated Europe, displaced workers rioting, terrorist drone swarms. If they think there's a riot, they'll just send a crew of robots down there. You won't be able to punch them because they'll just, like a weeble, they'll just get up again if you knock them over. They are stronger than humans. They can round people up. They can probably fire a taser. This is, the proper kind of 21st century stuff that, in the last century, we only saw in sci-fi movies. It's very real.
Yeah, the headline, you're right. I saw the headline, I thought, here we go, this is going to be a laugh. And then read it, I was like, no, this is exactly going to happen. Of course it is. AI's getting really good, the robots. There was a clip I saw online about how in the early 2000s, the robots walking looked stupid. Look at this idiot, can't even walk. Call yourself a robot, and now they can run. But at my age, with my knees, they can do better.
But the problem with this, of course, is the other side of things is that the terrorists are also arming up in the same techno respect. So there could be, for example, hundreds of pocket-sized AI quadcopters that could be sent out there that could down electricity pylons or water infrastructure. They could spring prisoners out of jail, all sorts of... So the battles of the future, based on what I'm reading here, I don't think it's overplaying it. If all of this played out as this suggests could be played out, it will be robot wars, and not the one with Craig Charles.
No, that's true. It's already happening in a sense, isn't it? Because of the invention of the drone, we have the ability to get things into prison that in the old days had to be baked into a cake or smuggled in, I believe, nature's pocket is the phrase. But these days you can get it, apparently they can get the drones so exact, it can be to the correct window in the prison. So that's the what 3 words problem, isn't it? This technology comes along and people work out how to use it for ill. I suppose the technology will be better. The state will end up having better tech.
Yeah.
But it's the way that you don't need the best tech. You just need to use it in the sneakiest way. But it will be a future where we're going to get robbed by robots. Why rob people yourself when you can just get your Optimus, slap your different AI software in there, and go and send it to do your crimes for you?
Yeah, and they arrive by drone as well when you buy one. So the whole thing is changing. Steve, thank you as ever. Have a cracking weekend. Steve N. Allen, the comedian and broadcaster with us on the programme. Over to you on all of that. And of course that key question, will this particular super flu, mean lockdowns and masks? And remember, I think I'm meteorologically correct in saying we haven't hit the coldest spell yet. That's kind of January, February, isn't it, when it gets a little chillier? 0344 499 1000. And are you wearing a mask, by the way? Have you got one of those things? One of these things, if you're watching us. You got one of those little beauties? That'll say you won't get cancer with that, I'm telling you. It's fantastic. Stops out leprosy. It's written all on there. Every kind of, yeah, if you, on one of those iffy dating sites, wear one of those, you won't get anything. I mean, these things are absolutely amazing. 0344 499 1000. Lines are open. This is Talk.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Mark says, you've been on form these last couple of days. Have you been on the Tina Turners? Says Mark. Just go to your dictionary of slang, kids, and it will explain everything. This comes from Reg, who says all of the migrants that the police got yesterday will probably been put up in a hotel locally last night and be on the streets in Bicester today. It's interesting how that particular raid got such a high profile. I mean, if you stop any major motorway, I suppose it would do. But this was rather extraordinary. It was a 4-hour closure, 5 miles of tailbacks. We'll update you on what happens. I'm interested in the driver as well on this, because it used to be that there was no defence for finding people who'd snuck in the back of your truck. You couldn't say, I didn't know they were there. The argument sort of went that, well, that's your responsibility to know that they're... Yeah, but if it's like organised crime and it's all sealed and looks like it did when I last went for a cup of tea, then how would I ever know? That was never a defence. It's like not paying your TV licence and going, oh, I didn't realise because I've only just moved. You can't use ignorance as a defence. Is that still the case? Because there used to be... that the rule was something like, in its heyday, there was an immigration minister called Barbara Roach. There you go. How that name came to me, I've got no idea. Under the Blair years, and I think she was the one who employed it, I think it was £10,000 per person that was found in your truck or car. So based on that, if that is still the law, it must have changed somewhat. This driver could be fined 130,000 quid. We'll update you. Let's move then to the story we started off with right at the very beginning. West Streeting warning doctors striking, plus a tidal wave of flu could crash the NHS over Christmas, with the service braced for a worst-case scenario amid an unprecedented, quote, super flu. Let's speak with Professor Carol Sikora, Medical Director at the Rutherford Cancer Centres. Good afternoon to you, Carol. Nice to have you with us. I don't think we've spoken for a little while. We would speak all the time. I mean, you were on TV so regularly, you had your own agent by the end of it, as I remember.
Exactly.
Lovely to have you with us. I mean, look, we know about flu. You're a senior clinician. You knew about this many, many years ago, that every year hospitals put out almost the same story. We're going to be under the cosh. It's going to be difficult. More people getting it. Can we cope, etc. Do you, from a medical perspective, sense anything different is happening this year?
Not at all. It's a lot of politics controlling the narrative, I'm afraid. Winter pressures are something we live with. And, I've been qualified 50 years, and from the first year on, winter pressures are there. It's old people getting chest infections, some severe, some not so severe, and of no social care services to get them home. So they essentially go into a bed in a hospital and they can't leave the hospital. That's the root cause. Now, what can you do about it? If you look at the data and the curves going up, if you look at it rationally, it's not different from any other year. You look back, it's a little bit earlier. It's about a week or two earlier than it would be. But that doesn't mean it's going to be worse. It just means it's a week or two earlier. And it's not really a super flu. It's a flu. Flu itself isn't a killer. It's the secondary consequences of lung inflammation.
Of course.
Predominantly old people.
Yeah. And of course, and those in vulnerable dispositions, if you're a cancer patient, an area you know very well, and you're on chemo or something like that, then that is a time when you could be affected if you were, to catch it at that particular time.
Absolutely, the advice is don't worry too much about it, but if you are impaired for some reason, you're on drugs for chemotherapy, for cancer, which is my specialty, just be careful about going out and about. Just try and stay at home and go to public parks and so on are fine. The outdoors is great, but going to crowds, going to the cinema, going to supermarkets, probably best avoided for a bit if you feel threatened by it. And by all means, wear a mask if you want to, but there's not much evidence that masks really, the sort of masks you showed just a minute ago, they really have very little effect.
Well, I was about to do it. It almost feels like Antiques Roadshow, this, that I was, for those who are watching rather than listening. There it is, Carol, you remember these very, very well, the old 2020 face mask. At the time, what was the alleged evidence that this might be a good thing to put on your face if there's a virus?
There was great controversy, both about what were called mask mandates, where you make it compulsory, and you fines if you don't wear a mask in this country and across the world. The controversy really is how effective they are. They're not. The mask you're just showing us is not effective. The ones we wear in hospitals or wore in hospitals, the FP3 masks, are effective. They're used by building contractors on building sites where there's asbestos, where there's other fibers that are dangerous, and that really keeps everything out, including tiny little virus particles. But the masks you're showing, I'm afraid, are of little use, and they give a false sense of security. Not only that, they're worn badly. You see people on the train this morning, and a few people are wearing masks, so you can see their nose through it, and it's no effect whatsoever.
And similarly, I suppose, I don't think there's going to be a lockdown, but I'm sort of half joking with some dark humour that maybe, we're about to have Wes Streeting tell us there's a lockdown, or Keir Starmer, that now well-known backdrop at number 10 explaining, and Chris Whitty with a graph and whatever, all of that. I don't think we're going back to that, but of course the evidence for lockdowns, that also, now we've got the COVID inquiry and the like, that also seems a little bit iffy, Carol.
It's all smokes and mirrors. There was really no evidence that lockdown helped. Sweden never had one, and their data is as good as anywhere else's at the end of the day. Old people die of chest infection. That's the bottom line, whether it's COVID or flu. And keeping them protected is probably the best thing. The other political issue at the moment, which you mentioned, is the doctor's strike, the resident doctor's strike. And that it's in the politicians' interest to sort of control the narrative.
Of course it is.
They shouldn't be doing it because there's a pandemic of flu coming, the NHS will collapse. So this is ammunition to try and make them rethink. But they're entrenched. They really are entrenched. I can sense it from speaking to the young doctors around. They're not going to back off next week, I'm sure.
Indeed. And, many of these are very qualified clinicians as well, so they're not going to be sort of... West Streeting isn't about to convince them that this super flu is going to wreak havoc in any sort of unrealistic manner. I think they're probably ahead of the curve, to coin a phrase, than he is on knowledge in that respect.
Absolutely. And statements from the head of NHS Confederation, a sort of career bureaucrat, coming out with that. If it was from the head of infection control at one of the big London hospitals, I'd listen.
Spot on. Yeah, I might listen, but I thought, I don't think this man is medically qualified that was saying this.
No, not at all.
And therefore, I think that does somewhat dilute the sort of qualification or the sense of authenticity around this. Listen, Carol, great to have you on again. Lovely to speak. Have a wonderful Christmas. Professor Carol Sikora, Medical Director at the Rutherford Cancer Centres. It's interesting to hear a clinician, and a very senior one at that. What did he say? 50 years he's been working in medicine, specialising in cancer, but of course you're across the whole board to some extent. And this mask thing ain't going to do very much, and lockdowns similarly really not kind of doing what you wanted them to. I mean, if everybody stayed indoors, that's the only theory, isn't it? If everybody stayed indoors, nobody gets it. But then the virus never goes through anything. So where does it go? Does the virus just turn around and go into reverse gear? Gary says, in most cases, viruses are not spread by someone coughing or sneezing in your face because, on the whole, we're far too polite to do that. So the effectiveness of masks in preventing the spread of a virus like flu is limited. The way the infection mostly spreads is when somebody catches a cough or a sneeze in their hand, then touches something like a door handle or a handrail that then somebody else touches when transferring the germs to their own mouth or nose, whilst wearing masks probably does lessen the chances of spreading an infection through coughing or sneezing. The more important message the government should be putting out is to regularly and frequently wash your hands. Time to break out the gallon drum of hand sanitizer that you've got sitting in the garage that you panic bought during pandemic but didn't end up using it. Yeah, got a few dozen crates of those beasts. Washing your hands, that does make perfect sense. Can I just throw this in, by the way? When it comes to putting your hand, if you cough, you naturally put your hand up. Even if you do it so instinctively, even if you're on your own, you tend to still do that because you've known it from being a little kid. Your hand just goes up. It's just an automatic kind of reflex. What about yawning? You should put your hand up when you yawn, shouldn't you? In public. Because nobody wants to see inside your massive orifice, do they? Let's be honest. Who wants to look at that little dangly thing and your teeth and your tongue where you've just had your fish and chips or whatever? That would just be polite. I don't think that necessarily is going to spread some horrendous virus around the world, but you take the point. Georgina is down in London. Georgina, what have you got? Have you got your mask on, firstly? Because we can't speak unless you have.
Well, a mask isn't going to do any good whatsoever.
It will save your life, Georgina. Who have you been listening to? David Icke?
Well, you've been listening to the government, obviously, but I don't, because they lie too much. Listen, we've had all this before. We had it with the coronavirus.
Yeah.
But people didn't go out of their houses. I mean, I had my mother was dying during the coronavirus. She had cancer. I wasn't even allowed to go and see her when she was in the hospitals or anything. This is ridiculous. This is house arrest, is what it is. We don't need these masks. It's an airborne virus. If you breathe, you will get it. It's as simple as that. And a mask over your face is not going to help matters. Take a tissue out with you. You know, if you're going to sneeze or cough, use a handkerchief. We used to do that back in my day. What's happened? Are people suddenly, the IQs have dropped suddenly? This is ridiculous. If the government think we're going to sit back and have another dose of what we had during the coronavirus, they are sorely mistaken. And the NHS also, they say they run off their feet. Well, hang on a minute. They may be run off their feet, but if migrants come over and need medical assistance, they're seen straight away. So please don't. And also, I think it's very convenient that the doctors be going on strike just as this killer flu virus is coming out into the open. Please, humour me. I love it. It's not going to happen. We're not stupid. The government must think that we came over on a slow boat from China, because let me tell you, we have learnt a lot. the last few years, we've learned that they cannot tell the truth. The vaccine that they said was totally safe for the coronavirus turned out to be killing people all over the world. And now they want to be sticking more vaccines. Well, they can stick their vaccines where the sun doesn't shine, because we're not going to take them.
Yeah, well, I mean, relatively few people die of a vaccine, but unfortunately, the problem is, whatever one you want to pop into somebody, I was reading a story, somebody who died of a flu vaccine about a year ago. I've never had one of those either, for that matter. But listen, Georgina, thank you very much indeed for that. 0344 499 1000. Very passionate stuff. It's echoed all over the place here. Zoe says Starmer can pave the streets with gold at this point. It would make no difference to the hurt and the damage this man and his clown show government have done to the British people and their livelihoods. They are hated too much to make any difference to anyone anymore, says Zoe. I don't know if that's reference flu or just a general rant about the government. I'm happy with either. Zoe, thank you very much indeed for that. Love it. More on that on the way. 0344 499 1000. You can drop us a voice note there as well, and you can message 87222.
This is from the migrant camps in Dunkirk.
It's a lot deeper and darker.
The French police are complicit every step of the way.
And that was when I heard the gunfire. You need to get out of here quick. They do not care about human life. They are dangerous people.
For 2 weeks, talk was undercover in those camps. This is an absolute scandal.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
This is Talk, indeed. This one from Reg, who says, discover the wonderful Carol Sakura during COVID. If only there were more people like him, the world would be a much better place, says Catherine in Cardiff. It's a really good point. All you want, I mean, a lot of people, COVID was about mass panic. You know, the idea is about mass control. Well, yeah, you can kind of look at it that way. And if you want to go down a sort of slightly tinfoil hat rabbit hole, you will find what look like confirmatory answers to all of those conspiratorial points. If you speak to anyone that worked within it, they'll tell you this was headless chicken territory. This was COVID. Did Boris Johnson know anything about face masks and lockdown? No, he had to get an advice from there, and we don't know what to do. I'll tell you what we'll do. We'll keep people apart when they are out, but we'll advise them not to go out in the first place. So we've got lockdowns, we've got social distancing, and we've got masks. And it's all probably a bit of gibberish thrown in there, but it's our best shot. Put it all together. We might reduce, collectively, between those three things, we might reduce things by 25%. That was it. That was the thinking of it, because there's no, with medicine and science, you work on proven facts. Okay, you set up experiments and then you come out with the results based only on the proof. It's evidence-led, and there is so many conflicting views on this. You heard Carol Sakura there. There are medics that will tell you the very opposite to that, that no, a mask is a good thing, it's not going to be perfect, give you 5%, 7%, 3%, whatever, but it's a percent, so it's worth it. So you get all of this, and that's where the conflict comes in. If this was, by now in the 21st century, I don't think it would be asking too much, bearing in mind we've got iPhones and AI, for somebody to authenticate the efficacy of this mask, to be able to literally tell us factually, no grey areas, not something that's open to debate. This mask, I know this pen in my hand, if I put it onto a piece of paper and move it around, it will write words or doodle. That's a fact. I know that, I can prove it, but they can't prove what this mask does or doesn't do, as the case may be. Because if it was the wonder drug for everything, as I said earlier, you'd have seen the government ad explaining it with a chief scientist showing you close-ups under the microscope of what the mask is made of and how it obliterates the dirty virus as it comes through the air. There's none of that, because it doesn't do that. Peter in Dorset. Peter, what have you got for us? Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Ian. Well,
have you got your mask on, firstly, Peter? I have to ask. Ofcom rules.
Well, if I'm like you, I wouldn't have it on. Yeah. I mean, you are exhibiting a good level, a very high level of normality. Unfortunately, the government and the way they're going about everything is exactly abnormal, with everything they're doing with the economy, the farmers, the lot. Whether we've got any law and order, the lot. However, the situation is that if we were told to lock down again, it would cause unbelievable chaos. And as far as I'm concerned, the government are after this country being in absolute chaos. This is where we are going. After 14 months, we're pretty close to it. And what the hell we're going to be in 3 years from now, I don't know. But anything that they can do to clog up the works of this country, to slow it down, to make it inefficient, to make it uneconomic, whatever it may be, insecure with military, whatever it may be to weaken this country, whatever they can do, they will do.
Why do you think? What do you think? Is it? Because it makes you wonder whether it's a plan, and I don't think they're bright enough for a plan. I tend not to think any politician is, Peter. Are they just rubbish at it? Because Wes Streeting is, he's widely seen as, a slightly more sane part of this cabinet. I think he's maybe over-egging the flu thing because he's trying to stop doctors striking. And perhaps I don't blame him for that. I don't know. But what is the agenda here with this lot? Because I've never seen a shower like this, Peter.
It's way beyond the realms of stupidity. As far as I'm concerned, there is a very sinister background position that is going on that we don't know about as regards where this lot running the government are in cahoots or being talked to by the Chinese etc. And I'm sorry, it sounds a bit far-fetched, but it's way beyond stupidity. It's way beyond incompetence. It's way beyond logic.
Yeah.
And we are sitting here having chats every day on the TV, and everybody's talking about it and how inefficient it all is, and we are just sliding down into a quagmire.
It's a grim old place, isn't it, right now? Listen, great call, Peter. Thank you very much indeed. I love the incredulity there. Tarquin down in London is going to follow on spectacularly on this theme. What have you got for us, Tarquin?
Not as spectacularly as you, Ian, at the beginning of the show. That was priceless. What you did, that act is fantastic.
Well, that's very kind of you. But I have to ask, Tarquin, have you got a mask on?
Of course.
Good. I'm glad to hear it. You sounded a little muffled there. So.
Well, I was just thinking whilst you were just after your intro, fantastic intro there, Ian, that I just thought, what is this like? It's like some sort of. I always look for similes and parallels, and in sort of behavioural ways. And I'm certainly not a psychologist by any stretch, but just normal observing human nature for many, many years. And I just think, could we actually draw any lessons? Could we learn any lessons of our journey? But we like to learn lessons. From like, it's like the state versus the people. It's like an abusive relationship. It's like coercive control, and you know which direction that's coming across. I mean, if we look at it like that, they kind of gaslight us. I am doing it for you, right? Oh, I'm doing it. Yes, like a pimp or a prostitute. Really, I'm doing it for you, honey. I'm doing it for you. Oh, yes, you are, honey.
The trouble is, it's only when I think about it now, I suppose like people like Boris had to sound. Because you're trying to wear more than one hat as the Prime Minister, aren't you? You're trying to sound, you're not just imparting information, you've got to impart information as if you believe it. So you've got to do that with a certain oomph and a certain passion and, a certain forcefulness. Otherwise, it sort of falls on deaf ears. And it fell on deaf ears anyway, but nonetheless, I suppose that's why we had the great analogy you just gave us. I'm doing it for you, darling. Love it. Tarquin, I've got to move because the news is upon us. Great call. Loads to get through this afternoon. 0344 499 1000. If you're messaging us, it's 87222. More of your calls on the way on the other side of the news at 2 next.
across the UK. On DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
It is indeed the afternoon empire. Loads to get through here. Oh my God, we've got such incredible callers and messages coming through. We are, of course, discussing flu season. Who would have thought it? It's like winter. We've got a flu season. I'm sure we had one last year and the year before, and since the earth began. Flu season continues. NHS under pressure with some patients being treated in cupboards, apparently. There are now warnings that this is the last chance to get protected before Christmas. The Health Secretary says a tidal wave of flu and the doctors going on strike could crash the service. Will flu mean lockdowns and masks? We're asking you that question and your thoughts. Also this afternoon, as you've been hearing, a lorry carrying 13 migrants caused 5 miles worth of queues after police stopped it on the M40. It closed 2 lanes for about 4 hours. Thames Valley Police detained 13 and arrested the driver on suspicion of immigration offences. It isn't just boats, it's cars, it's trucks, and it could even be bicycles. I don't know. But something is going on there. Have we got our eye on the right ball on this? Details to come. And, of course, as we discussed or alluded to, Kyiv is weighing up a dramatic peace gambit, pulling back from the Donbass to create a demilitarized zone if Russia matches the move. Zelensky says Trump is pushing a free economic zone between opposing forces. We'll be joined in the studio a little later in the programme by Ukrainian politician Kira Rudik will join us, People's Deputy of Ukraine, and we'll find out more on that. Everything you need to know, all the breaking news right here on Talk, 0344 499 1000. Brian says, so face recognition technology is not of any use. Just wear a mask of some sort. You see, that's a bit of a double-edged sword, isn't it? You don't like masks, but you don't like facial recognition technology. Which one do you go for? Stick the mask on? Don't like the mask? Don't believe in the mask? But I also don't believe in... That's a real comment. There you go, you see. That's your drinking game for this evening. Which one do you go for? So let's move to this story, the leaked document story. This is extraordinary. It's a leaked draft of the national security strategy this is from the Trump administration, that apparently urges Austria, Italy, Hungary and Poland to leave the EU and pivot towards Washington. A partial draft already warns of a civilizational erasure. This is down to, they quote, woke migration and censorship. The full report goes even further, advocating breaking up the EU, perhaps for good. We'll talk to Gwaine Towler in just a moment. First, Richard Kilpatrick, Campaign Movement, European Movement UK. Good afternoon to you, Richard.
Good afternoon, Ian.
Nice to have you with us. So there it is, the EU. We left it and we just did it in the nick of time because it's about to fall apart because Donald Trump said so.
Yeah, it's extraordinary, isn't it? I think the President of the United States and its agencies can publish, quite frankly, whatever they want. The reality is that the European Union has been the most successful peace project in human history. And I think some of the countries that you mentioned there that appear in this report, Austria, Hungary, Italy, Poland, I mean, these are nations that have incredibly high levels of support over their membership of the EU with their citizens. And God forbid, we take a moment to realise that actually, these are sovereign nations who have decided to join the European Union and be active members of the European Union.
Yeah. It's also, it's interesting. Obviously, it's about the politics. If you look at current governments in those countries, you can see why Trump would have identified those specific, or this report. I'm sure, like the mafia don, Trump will distance himself from these specific words. The bit I can't get my head around, Richard, it's very sort of it's not very Trump-like to say, Trump was all about, we're America, we'll do our own thing, we won't interfere with you, you don't interfere with us. We don't do this global lark. We are independent and autonomous. And, OK, it's a democracy, they voted for that's fine. So for them to read that, and I know he's done this with Canada, at one point he was going to take over Canada and Greenland, and goodness knows where he's having a little moment with Venezuela right now. So he's... but it's sort of against the whole the philosophy of the current Republican movement to suddenly say, well, we'd quite like these countries to, you know, be more adhering to us rather than this big EU state.
Yeah, it's almost like we're living through this very confusing international policy swing from the US, aren't we? This going from isolationism to actively suggesting breaking up the European Union at a time, quite frankly, with the backdrop of Putin's Russia threatening sovereign nations in Europe, committing untold war crimes in Ukraine. And it just goes to show, really, to be honest, Ian, just how unreliable and, quite frankly, unserious this US administration is. For countries like the UK, and I think we do have to look back at, like, you know, how does that impact us? I think it really just goes to show that the rest of Europe is, that ourselves and Europe, quite honestly, just need to look at each other and work together and take our defence and security very, very seriously, because that old ally is becoming less and less reliable.
But isn't that rather Trump's point, though, that, and he might have had, you know, I mean, I can remember a few years ago when he was first president, that moment sitting right next to Angela Merkel saying, look, you got to dip your hand in your pocket more, mate, because we're putting way too much money into NATO compared to yourselves. That's not fair. And this particular war, of course, where we are now in Ukraine, is on European soil, and the Americans felt that they were disproportionately kind of trying to solve things over and above the very continent that it was happening in.
But then, you know, the challenge then is, how on earth can a president suggest that? And I actually have a lot of sympathy with some of that. I think it's absolutely right that Europe takes responsibility, including the United Kingdom, takes responsibility for defending the borders of Europe. And let's also remember that it is European lives being lost every single day in Ukraine. And it's absolutely right that he makes that point. But at the same time, it's madness for the United States to try and suggest that the European Union should be broken up. I mean, the European Union, as well as being an economic organisation, it is ultimately a peace organisation, and it has been the most successful peace organisation and peace project in the history of humanity. So while FIFA gives Donald Trump an award for a peace prize, how on earth can they seriously give that to him at the same time that he's suggesting breaking up what is and effectively is one of the only unified voices in the face of Putin's aggression?
But he would argue on that point. He also gets free tickets for the World Cup as well, we should add. So it all worked out rather well in that FIFA meeting. His point would be, I've not started any wars, I'm trying to stop wars, and actually you've got the UK and France, we're throwing God knows how many millions and billions of pounds into Ukraine to arm them up so they can fight. You've got various big characters in the EU suggesting that, you know, we've got to get ready for war. Mark Rutte suggesting that this might be, you know, just be ready, guys, that kind of thing. Trump's position is, we don't want a war. I'm trying to stop one. The EU are trying to start one.
But I think appeasement doesn't stop a war, does it, Ian? Appeasement actually makes a country less safe, and it makes a continent less safe. I think NATO is it's absolutely right that NATO needs to be ready for conflict, and if it's an effective organisation that we hope that it is, it should always be in that state of readiness. To be really honest, we have to just accept that there has already been actions by the Russian state that is aggressive to the United Kingdom and to Europe and to the United States. We live with a very aggressive neighbour on our borders, and it's something that we have to be ready for. And it is really worrying, of course, that our ally that we relied on for so long is just so unreliable currently, and that it's regrettable. And I hope that there is some sanity left in the Republican Party and within his administration that is warning him of how dangerous the things that he's saying is to the continent of Europe. And actually, if you were Putin right now, you look at what Donald Trump has said and what this report says, and you'd be rubbing your hands. It's like an early Christmas present.
Interesting. Richard, thank you for your time. Really appreciate that. Richard Kilpatrick, campaign manager with the European Movement UK. Bearing in mind who Richard represents, you, I'm sure, not unreasonably, would say, well, he would say that, wouldn't he? Is there an issue here? I mean, it is kind of interesting that Donald Trump would kind of, is the word meddle? he says what he thinks. He says how he feels. I get that. Let's get a word from Gwaine Towler, political strategist and Reform UK board member. Gwaine, you know your way around the politics of the EU and all that goes with it. It's a labyrinthine world of doom, frankly. But our previous guest said it's been one of the most successful blocs in history for peace. Why would we not endorse that? And what the hell is Donald Trump doing coming along suggesting he can remove 4 countries from it? And on that point, Gwaine's line froze on us.
Well, dare I say, as
we got you back, Gwaine.
Guests pointed out.
We will try and get you back on a better line. Gwaine Towler is speaking, it looks like from a farm somewhere. His line is a little dicey, little dodge. Don't worry, we'll come back to it. Let's take some more comment from you. Reference that question we began with about flu, germs, influenza, breakdown of the NHS, lockdowns and these little masks and stuff, those little pesky monkeys. Leslie says, I don't know what planet you're living on. Wherever I'm out and about in public places, majority of people do not have the common courtesy of covering their mouth when coughing and sneezing. It is disgusting. Well, absolute agree. You're right. I mean, I'm not saying everybody does it. Masks do help a little in spreading germs. Better than nothing, says Leslie. This one in from Mark, who's enjoying the show. I think I've just done Mark's. We've got Gwaine back with us. Gwaine, can you hear us now okay?
I can certainly hear you. It's the other way around. That's probably more sensible for you not to hear me.
That's all right. No, you're sounding great as ever. So our first guest was making the point, you know, what the heck. Europe is a very safe place because it's a bloc, or the EU is a safe place because it's a bloc, and President Trump has no right in, you know, what the hell is he doing by trying to nick 4 EU countries?
Well, firstly, the reason why the EU is a safe place is because America has been defending it for 50, 60 years. We have taken advantage as Europeans, both as British and on the continent, of America's defence largesse for decades. And instead of spending on our own defence, we have spent on welfare. That's what we've done. Trump is looking at China as his big enemy, not so much Russia. Russia's a problem, China's an enemy. And he has to look at the global. We don't look globally anymore. We're not a global continent, we're not a global nation. We are parochial. And he has to be considered about China. And so to him, Russia is our problem to a certain extent. And, well, it's in our theatre of interest. But we have sat getting fat on their defensive and their martial spending, and now they're not prepared to do it anymore. And his other stuff in that defence strategy, his global strategy document, where he talks about the civilizational erasure in Europe, well, he does have a point, you know. We have been changing our culture. We've given up on Christendom. We've given up on Christianity, and we are replacing it with not belief in nothing, but belief in anything. There's the whole the zealotry of the Green movement that believe they're morally better than you because they care about trees. Well, mate, we all care about trees. We all love the environment and countryside, but we don't necessarily want to destroy ourselves on the altar of that. And that is what we've been doing. And what with the massive immigration and the change in our culture, which is real. Now, some people may say it's preferable. Well, OK, but I don't think most people in this country, or in fact on the continent, think it's preferable. They don't see around them and think, you know what, everything's got better. Right now, we think everything's got worse. Yeah. Oh, sorry. Of course, the argument is we've got better cuisine. Well, yeah, we do. But, I mean, that's not an argument for the, basically, destruction of everything else we hold dear. And so the reason why you've seen the rise of people like Reform in the UK, and I would say this, wouldn't I, but also elsewhere on the continent, the rise of parties like ours, or similar to ours, is because people are looking around and thinking the political establishment of the last 40 years have sold our souls for pottage, and what do we get in return? We get a society that tells us we're dreadful, and we then see our great defender and ally going almost like Pilate washing its hands of us. If we're not prepared to do for ourselves what we should, then why should somebody else spend blood and money on us? And that, I think, is Trump's point.
Indeed, and if a student, Gwaine, was putting together a dissertation based on the changing face of the EU, it really wouldn't be hard to write that. Back in the 70s when people voted for a common market, totally understandable. There sounded like a sensible trade deal on the table.
That's how it was sold to the UK. It was a free trade deal. We're
correct.
Up for that.
all of that, up for that. Even when the odd rule or regulation about, rivets ideally should be the same size in Spain as they are in the UK, even that made a bit of sense.
Makes sense.
Yeah, that made a bit of sense. But then we started getting sort of mission creep in all sorts of areas, from religion and goodness knows what else, and common policies on law and order creeping in, a military template laid out because, that whole Franco-German agreement back in the day was, was always going to lead to this, right?
The military agreement was always, if you look at what they were producing, they were trying to challenge America. When I worked in Brussels, one of the things I worked on international development, and you'd get the bloc, you'd be saying, no, you can't do this. The only way you'd get the European Commission to act or move was to tell them the Americans were interested in something similar, so therefore the European Union saw itself for decades in competition with America rather than in concert. And so now America's, it's as I say, they have other fish to fry. They've got the whole world to worry about, not just us.
And when you see this written, or apparently written in a strategy that, that they're sort of suggesting that fork Austria, Italy, Hungary and Poland, understand why those particular countries are named, is this Trump putting a firework up the trouser leg of EU members, or is this serious?
I think it's more the trouser leg, to be honest. However, if you look, Poland is now creeping up to 5% of GDP on defence. America respects that.
Yeah.
We might get to 2.5 at the end of the decade. Poland is parked right next to Russia. It sees that threat and it sees it right next door. We are lazy and blind, and for decades, it's one of the problems with our defence is we have had a culture by which our young men and women are taught that their country is in some way bad. Its history is wrong. Everything we've done is in some way evil. To then turn to that same generation and say, "Oh, and by the way, can you die for it?"
Yes. Yeah.
How are you going to recruit? How are you going to recruit?
It's a great point. And I think, I know the term groupthink is, sort of thrown around a fair bit these days, but I mean, it absolutely catches the kind of horrendous issues with the EU. And I sense that over the years, over the decades even, Gwen, and particularly with this government up to the present day, it is that kind of groupthink. It is that these people cannot get out of the parameters on which they have been bred, which is sort of the EU collective good, anything else bad.
Well, the answer to any problem in the EU is more EU. When you see corruption scandals breaking out in the EU, the answer is more EU to deal with the EU corruption. And just hold on, just stop. This peace project, yes, back in the 1950s, the idea of tying Germany's industrial might up so it couldn't launch a third war in 100 years, that made perfect sense. But it was underwritten by other people's treasure, not by our own.
Yeah. On that point, Gwaine, always great to get you on. Glad the line held out as well. Gwaine Towler with us. He is, of course, a political strategist, Reform UK board member as well. Absolutely geared up, mastermind style on what goes on in the EU. And I think it was the overreach, wasn't it? It was the sense that, when there was always this interesting, very simple example of what the problem was. If you would ask a minister in France or Germany, is this about creating a United States of Europe? They pretty much go, yes, that's exactly what this is. That's the whole point. I had former colleagues that I used to work with that were very much, they would describe it like that because they wanted it like that. And by the way, just to go back to my tired old analogy, we're not North Korea. If somebody wants to think that and they believe their life is served best like that, they're allowed to think that. But at least be honest about it. And if someone's honest about that, then that's fine. If you threw the same question at a Brit, even, there's even radio presenters I've heard cut people off because they talk about if they raise the United States of Europe. That's precisely what it is. If something has a president and it has a flag and it has a parliament too, in fact, and it has a currency and it has an anthem, I think that kind of doesn't make you some kind of tinfoil hat monkey, because you might go, it sounds a bit like a country. Certainly does. 0344 499 1000. Back with more from you coming next. We're talking masks and lockdowns. It's flu, it's Trump, whatever you like. Lines are open. This is Talk.
This is from the migrant camps in Dunkirk.
It's a lot deeper and darker.
The French police are complicit every step of the way.
And that was when I heard the gunfire. You need to get out of here quick. They do not care about human life. They are dangerous people.
For 2 weeks, Talk was undercover in those camps. This is an absolute scandal.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Susan says, I remember as a child, the government put out winter infomercials on TV and on posters. Coughs and sneezes spread diseases. Trap them in a handkerchief. That was it. Nobody ever mentioned the NHS collapsing. No mainstream media hysteria, no control pressures. So this is progressive politics. No thanks, says Susan. They would have those very simple. I don't remember that one. Maybe that predates me. I do remember ones about TV licenses where, you know, they would go around pretending and purporting that they had a big antenna that could identify literally which room you were sitting in your own house and what you were watching, and then give you a criminal record for your troubles. Filthy welcher, which I think was the phrase they used. Matt's in Cheshire. On the flu, Matt, I want to ask if you're masked up, Matt, because I can't really continue unless you have a face mask on.
I was prepared for that question. In triplicate.
I'm glad. I like the triplicate people, because they're just conscious of other people's feelings and and health, basically.
Yeah, I'm extra crazy and a total zealot.
Yeah, it's how you have to be. It's the only way. It's the only way forward.
Can I just say about your pro-European guest?
Yes.
He forgot to mention that the EU has brought Islamist terror to the continent of Europe. For all his talk of safety, he forgot to mention Islamist terror.
That's an interesting point, isn't it? But that wouldn't fit the narrative over there at the European Movement UK.
No, we've not had any wars, but we constantly have explosions.
I bet that's never come up in one of their meetings, not under any other business either. It's never been discussed over there at the EMUK.
You don't need wars when you're importing terrorists.
It's a fair point. There's been a fair bit of it on European soil over the last few years.
I had gastric flu about 10 years ago, Ian, and it was the worst thing I've ever had in my life.
How long did that go on for?
2 weeks.
Oh,
I was in bed every day for 2 weeks. I lost a stone and a few pounds.
Yeah.
I felt like my feet had been battered with baseball bats every day, and I couldn't eat anything because whatever I ate obviously didn't stay within my digestive system.
Yeah.
So I had to get tablets that I put under my tongue, and I'm still here. And all I did was stay in my room. Went downstairs now and then, came back upstairs now and then.
Yeah.
And nobody avoided me like I was a leper. And it just proves in that time span how we've gone from... I think a few other people I know had a similar flu at the time. My mum had it, and she was in her early 60s. And she was fine after about 2 weeks, and we didn't think she was going to die.
Yeah.
And it was literally it was really hardcore flu. And I would imagine it was probably much worse than COVID. And
it probably, I would imagine that was much worse. I mean, most people who got COVID really did. I know COVID wasn't if you got COVID bad, it was very bad. I mean, it really wasn't pleasant. But we knew that. Sensible people knew that. But the average person that got it got essentially a cold, right?
Well, I would imagine if that was spreading around what I had, gastric flu, where you can't eat and you're losing weight and you can't maintain sort of nourishment within your body until you've got rid of the flu.
Yeah.
I would imagine that is a lot more dangerous for vulnerable people than anything. And we never heard a single word about that at the time.
Yeah.
So it just goes to prove the sensationalist times we live in and the outright lunacy of the political class.
Yes. Yeah, and I wonder whether, as the years have gone on, and I think I was about to say it's particularly pronounced under Labour, but of course all this stuff, the real bad stuff, happened under the Tories in terms of the lockdown and the masks. But there is just a sense that the governments, as they've sort of refined or should have refined over the years, have moved into that territory that every department, because it's so crammed full of sizzling civil servants, they've got to have a use, they've got to have a function. So whatever happens, they need to tell you what to do. Look at the rules and regulations that exist on everything, health and safety that exist on everything. A friend of mine the other day was talking about elevators and how they're referred to on tannoy systems. Please remember you are travelling in movable machinery. It's like, really? Like, we didn't know that?
I think that just goes again back to the EU again, doesn't it? A gigantic building filled with people that need a role, and we've just developed their bureaucracy and their army of useless idiots who would all be unemployed if they didn't have anything to tell us to boss us around with.
Yeah. Spot on. Matt, thank you very much indeed. It is absolutely that. There is a... I can't remember what the story was this week. It was one of the usual stories that comes up where someone decides we need another rule on something. We had the... was it Portsmouth Council or a local council in Portsmouth that had said that you can't put a wreath on the door because it's communal spaces. So I can understand why you don't put a lawnmower outside your door if you live in a block of flats and there's a narrow corridor. That might be troublesome. If you're coming home in the dark and you've had a couple of pints, you might trip over it. That's just common sense, really. But this was wreaths on door that they said was, you know, troubling. And I was talking about, it's slightly different, but it's sort of still connected, at how Vinted were now asking people, anyone who'd sold over 30 items on Vinted, needed to register their national insurance number because the government wants to know if you're earning a few quid that you shouldn't be earning. It's like, really? Are you going to manage that part of people's lives? You know, the small ads in newspapers, for sale, you know, kids pushchair, no longer needed. Reason, kid got older. 30 quid, come and collect it. Are we now literally going to police the small ads because there might be a few quid in there if you are making too much money? It's that kind of... I want to live under that sort of nonsense, do you? 0344 499 1000. This is Talk.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
This one comes from Liam, who says, afternoon Ian, I currently work in the NHS. What is killing it is the amount of management. We have quite a small department. We've got 8 lads working with us, but we have 4 managers for the 8 lads. 2 of them only work on site 1 day a week and 4 at home. What they say better like that, so upper management can't see how little we do. I think I get the gist of that. And also, we have 3 small rooms, all with roughly 90,000 quid's worth of computer monitors in each one. But there are 2.5 years in 2.5 years they've not been touched. It's all that kind of stuff. I did hear somebody the other day give a really interesting defence of managers in the NHS, and I can't for the life of me remember where I heard it or what specifically was said, but it was an argument in defence of managers that we apparently have fewer than most other countries or something like that. I find that hard to believe. Something we don't have fewer of are migrants coming into the UK in various shapes and forms. Yesterday, a lorry carrying 13 migrants caused 5 miles worth of queues for about 4 hours after the police stopped the lorry on the M40. It closed 2 lanes and carnage ensued. Thames Valley Police then detained the 13 people and arrested the driver on suspicion of immigration offences. We hear plenty about small boats, but incidents like this slip under the radar. How common are they? Let's speak with David Wood, former Director General of Immigration Enforcement. David, good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon, Ian.
I mean, on that first point, how common is this?
Well, it used to be, of course, very common. It used to be the best way for the migrants to cross the channel. It won't be as common now. I mean, I would imagine the numbers would be in the thousands who come in that route each year, because of course it doesn't necessarily cost them anything to come on that route, although it's more complicated now. Whereas those who have got money will probably come on the small boats because it's a guaranteed success. Of course, lorries, they've got to try again, normally to get in the lorry or I guess bribe a driver. But there'll still be some who take that route,
sure.
And it would amount to probably small numbers of thousands. It used to be about 20,000 a year before small boats were very active.
Yeah, and it used to be, of course, that the driver could get, I think originally something like 10,000 quid a person or something horrendous like that. That might have been revised later on, but it was certainly brutal, even if you didn't realise somebody was in your truck.
That's right. I mean, it's a criminal offence, of course, to bring people in if you can prove they had knowledge, but otherwise they got this civil penalty. It used to be 2,000, actually. It went up to 10,000, as you say.
And is that still in force? That
oh yes, that penalty is still in force. I mean, they don't have to be fined the 10,000. That's the
maximum.
The maximum they can be fined. The immigration officer dealing with it can choose a lower amount. Yes, it's quite punitive to a driver that's caught with people in their truck. Yeah,
and I suppose for those in the truck, I mean, what offence have they committed, if at all? Because, of course, they put their hands up and say, I'm claiming asylum. And that, as I understand it, becomes, you sort of legitimise their legal position at that point.
Yes, it's a criminal offence to come and come to illegally. But as you say, a defence to that is if you're found to be an asylum seeker. Very few people are prosecuted in any event for illegally entering the country.
Yeah.
But they, as you say, as soon as they claim asylum, that's all put on hold anyway, and the asylum claim is considered.
Of course, the methods for trying to catch people in lorries range massively, from literally physical checks and temperature checks in lorries, and even X-raying now. So it's pretty top stuff. But the brutal reality, David, is that Border Force can't check every single truck.
They can't have dogs who run around the trucks, but of course a lot of the trucks don't arrive not long before the ferry or the train leaves. So yes, there's very limited, and I guess the resources have been shifted away from that a bit towards the small boats activity, which is far more prevalent. So yeah, it's very difficult to put those resources and to catch all those in the trucks. Yeah, it's absolutely right.
Did you ever hear of Brits jumping into the back of a truck to try and break into France?
No, but there has actually been in the past illegal migrants this year getting back to trucks or boots of cars to go to France because they don't want to be intercepted by the Border Force people on the way out, which is rather interesting.
Yes, I did. Oddly, I think that came up a couple of days ago. Somebody referenced that. So escaping, so you're illegally in the country and then escaping illegally out of the country again.
Yeah, it sounds bonkers, doesn't it? But it has happened, yes. I'm sure they're small numbers, to be fair.
Is this just the wider question, David, the whole issue of illegal immigration, boats, overstayers on visas, goodness me, the whole list of things. I mean, is there ever a point when a country can go, we've solved it, we've sorted? I mean, Australia did pretty well. It's not quite a comparable case, as you know better than me, but, you know, it's certainly in the boat element of immigration. Visa overstayers, I don't know about that, but... is there a point, you know, is there a sort of, I don't know, one-size-fits-all plan waiting in the wings somewhere that will finally solve this so you and I never have these conversations again?
No, I don't think it's one size fits all. I don't think it's a magic bullet sort of solution to this. I mean, I guess the real magic bullet from our point of view, but maybe not Europe's, is for France to accept every single one back immediately who crosses the channel. So whether you intercept them mid-channel and take them back, there'll be issues with that, of course. But if France did do that, it's probably the UK worth paying them a lot of money to do so. Then, of course, also it stopped the camps in the north of France because they suddenly find it's pointless. They wouldn't do it.
Indeed, I mean, this has come up a couple of times as well, David, recently. Very simple kind of theory that if the French took everybody back, and that was specifically the agreement, so literally every boat that arrived on the shores of Dover, those people were then put on a different boat and taken straight back to France, then that would be in France's interest as well, because there might be a little bit of a problem for a couple of weeks, but then migrants would soon realise it's a futile journey.
Yeah, absolutely. And these people have only come from France. It's not like they're taking extra people. It's just people who've just come from France having them back. And as you say, the migrant camps in Calais around there are a real nuisance to local people. I mean, it's disliked there. The mayor is always talking out about it because they're defecating in the woods or in the streets there. There's local crime associated and some serious crime within the camps itself. So, they're not welcome there, really, in the way they're there.
Indeed. On that point, David, great to have you on again. Nice to speak. David Wood, former Director General of Immigration Enforcement, with us on the programme. Thank you to him. More comment coming in for you on a whole range of issues. Reference Donald Trump. Maggie says, I think Donald Trump is keeping a close eye on Putin. He loves Great Britain, and I'm sure he has our back. I certainly hope so. Thank you for that, Maggie. Tony says, the idea of a reform government and a Conservative opposition isn't sensible. You need opposing views. Currently, we have a socialist government and a socialist civil service. A recipe for the chaos we're experiencing, says Tony in Wootton, enjoying the show. Tony, thank you very much indeed for that. I mean, the civil service is all over the flipping place, isn't it? One from Liam, afternoon. Oh, that was the NHS one. I did just read that out. Barry says, could you blame America if they turn their backs on us? What with Starmer's insults, Lammy's insults, Khan, what stupid balloon running, Trump down to the lowest there. All traitors. What the hell is our Labour doing to this Labour government doing to us, says Barry in Norwich. Great question. John in Lancaster. The whole of Europe, including the UK, is turning to the right wing for salvation. This call to war is an attempt to stop this happening. And I do wonder, is this about turning to... Is this because there is suddenly an appetite for something more right-wing? And by the way, when we say right-wing, you could say the Trump administration is right-wing, the Polish or the Italian administrations are right. And these aren't nutty kind of nightmare right-wing regimes, not the British National Party running the place. They're just mostly centre-right parties. But the reason there is an appetite for that is largely due to the ineptitude of the groupthink left. And that's really what's happened, is that people have been very lazy with their politics right across the continent of Europe, France, Germany in particular. And they've sort of developed this harmonised sort of low bar way of ruling. And anything that gets in the way is kind of dismissed because it's too much trouble. If there's a big issue coming their way, immigration, good example, easier to wave it through than come up with a range of policies to argue it. It's been that. So that sort of, and it's not even mad lefty socialist thinking. Some of these countries are not that, but they've joined in with it because the EU supergroup says that this is what we're going to do. Those people have themselves to blame for countries and individuals turning to something different because we've not had it sorted out. They've just worked on retaining the status quo seems to be the aim of every government we've had in most of our lifetimes. Mike's in Lancashire. Back to the flu. Mike, how you doing?
Yes, I'm doing fine, thank you. But
Good.
I'm rather disappointed with your guest who suggests rather than wearing a mask, you should just sneeze into your hand. As soon as I heard that, I thought about all the people who might sneeze while travelling on a bus or a train or going shopping. And that hand that they've just sneezed in is on all the support rails on the bus or on the train.
Well, you've got to wash your hands afterwards. Well, that would apply in any time, wouldn't it? What do you do if you sneeze at the moment?
Sorry?
What do you do if you sneeze at the moment?
I've got a tissue usually in my pocket.
Fantastic. I mean, if you've got a tissue, yes. I mean, I think similar point, hand tissue, whatever you've got there. Most people won't have a tissue.
That's an argument for having handkerchiefs like they did in the old days.
Yeah.
But to sneeze in your hand then walk down a public bus touching the handrails.
But wouldn't 90% of people on any given day sneeze into their hand?
No.
What would they do?
They'd sneeze into the open air, and it would be dissipated. It wouldn't be trapped on your fingers.
But do you think
then go on to touch other things?
Well, that is, of course, a reality. Yes, if you were to sneeze into your hand and your hand became like a snotty little pond on your palm, then that wouldn't be good. I know these things can be microscopic, but isn't it instinctive if you're going to sneeze to put your hand up rather than go off like a trombone in the high street?
The fact is, he said he would automatically sneeze into his hand.
But most people would, wouldn't they?
To touch other things.
But that's true enough. But your instinct is to put your hand up when you sneeze. You teach kids that.
That may be so. But in situations like this, where it's a highly contagious flu epidemic, you've got to make other resources. And there's nothing to keep carrying a tissue or something that you can sneeze into, or a mask. Rather than touch other objects that other people have to get hold of.
Yeah,
people complained about COVID, that masks didn't work. They didn't work because it relied on other things, i.e., as you've just suggested, washing your hands.
Indeed. Well, that's what we need.
Their own, they're not.
We need to get back to a bit of hand washing, I think, don't we? Mike, thank you very much. I mean, theoretically, I know exactly where you're coming from. In practical terms, I don't, sometimes I have one of those little packet of tissues in my bag, sometimes. But mostly, I think the average person hasn't got a tissue, and the average person, if they were going to sneeze, would put their hand up. Not everybody does. But Mike's point is that, don't put your hand up. As long as you're not sneezing over somebody, sneezing to an open space. Because your grimy, snot-ridden, virus-infected palms will spread the doom. I kind of get it. Thank you to Mike. More from you in a few moments. 0344 499 1000. This is Talk.
This is from the migrant camps in Dunkirk.
It's a lot deeper and darker
The French police are complicit every step of the way.
And that was when I heard the gunfire. You need to get out of here quick. They do not care about human life. They are dangerous people.
For 2 weeks, talk was undercover in those camps. This is an absolute scandal.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
It's just gone 10 to 2. Ashley says, so you're telling me those illegals in the lorry are going to get to stay in hotels, receive free meals and heating, while the driver will no doubt be prosecuted to the full extent of the law. I'm not condoning either, but that's two-tier justice if they aren't all punished. Yeah, but they will claim if they claim refugee status, then any illegality goes out the window. I know it's bizarre, isn't it? If the driver didn't know they were in there, then that is awful. But can still get fined for it. Neil is in Buckingham. Oh, we got the voice of... Just very quickly, don't go away, Neil. Don't go away, Spike, with you guys in a second. Voice of it is a brand new voice. It's a mystery voice, but it's political. Could be left-wing, could be right-wing, could be young, old, dead or alive. Very simple question. Who is this?
A cruel and punishing night. A cruel and punishing night.
Right. I didn't know who that is. I do know who that is, though. I think I know who that is. It's Edwina Curry, isn't it? Yeah, I know. If you think you know, 87222, 87222. Here it is again.
A cruel and punishing night.
Yeah. I spoke over the end of it just to spoil it a bit. If you think you know, 87222. If we get a right answer, we'll tell you after the news at 3 o'clock. Let's go to Neil in Buckinghamshire. Neil, how are you doing?
Yeah, not too bad, thank you.
Have you got the flu, Neil?
No, but I've got a permanent cold because I work outside, inside, so I'm always sneezing.
Yeah.
So if I had a mask on, I'd get through... Well, during COVID, we had the paper mask, we had the fabric mask. Can you imagine sneezing 3 or 4 times into one of those?
Yes, not...
And what your face is going to look like?
Well, yeah, your face, it'd be like a road map for some horrendous part of the world, wouldn't it?
Exactly. You're just going to transmit even more germs all over the place.
I'm sure you can and you can reinfect yourself, can't you? I'm sure you can.
Yes. You'll never get... The whole idea of sneezing is to get rid of what's up your nose.
Yeah.
That is the whole idea. It's like anything else. You know, our body's like a sewage works. You put stuff in, it has to come out the other end.
Yeah. Have you got...
Exactly the same
Have you got...
with your nose.
Have you got kids, Neil?
Yeah, I've got a 25-year-old son.
You know what it's like when they're little? You can keep catching a cold off each other for about 3 months. It doesn't, you know, they sneeze right in your face. And, of course, you know, they're sitting on your lap, you're sneeze, you give it to them, they give it to you. It goes on and on.
Yeah, I mean, it's what life is. We live in a country where it's warm, cold, mild. It breathes. That's what it is. We just got to get on with it and protect the old people or protect the kids. You know, if I'm really, really bad, I wouldn't go and see an old person. I wouldn't go and see a young grandkid. You know what I mean? I would be responsible for my own actions. But since COVID, everyone wants to be told, oh, you've got to wear a mask. You've got to do this.
Yeah.
We've lost responsibility for ourselves.
You're absolutely right. Love it. Neil, great point. Love the passion as well. One here says, sneeze into your elbow if you don't have a tissue. It's not strictly your elbow, is it? It's the inside. You know you can't lick your own elbow. You know that one, don't you? You know that, Finn? Finn reckons he can. He's got a tongue like a flipping giraffe, that one. He was some kind of medical curiosity as a kid. They thought they had a lizard staying there. So the inside of your elbow, I know what you mean. So you do that and you sneeze. That stops your hands getting all the guff on them, and therefore you're not going to contaminate handrails. Spike is in Pembrokeshire. probably riddled with fluey disease, Spike, are you? Good afternoon.
I'm quite healthy, thanks very much, Ian. Great show, by the way.
Thank you. What are you thinking?
I called the doctor this morning at 8 o'clock, which is a thing you can do here in Tenby. I'm actually living in.
Okay.
And 2 hours later, there I was in the surgery, which is fantastic. I wouldn't have got that when I was living previously at Tower Hamlets, but anyway, you get it here straight away. So, and as I arrived, walked into the surgery, and two ladies were on reception and said, "You need to put this mask on."
No.
Gave me a mask and said, and then there was probably 8 signs around the surgery saying masks must be worn from, which was yesterday, I think. Is it the 12th? 11th yesterday. And sat down, and everybody in the surgery was all sat there with masks on, including a little lad who was about 10, sat there with a mask on.
Yeah.
But everybody had it as usual, like we used to do 4 or 5 years ago, just with it, their nose poking out the top of it. And I thought, this is just like a show.
That really is back to the old, because do you remember, even when the mask mandate stopped, hospitals still carried them on. And so it's back to that.
Yep. And obviously when I got called through then to the doctor, I said, "Oh, do I need to get this on?" She said, "No, of course you don't." She said, "We've had a phone call yesterday. We all need to put these masks on." And so it just felt as though we're just, like I say, just, ticking the box, really, to be seen that we're putting these masks on again. And it just seemed crazy to me.
That is absolutely, that's extraordinary. It's the first time I've heard that. Spike, thank you very much indeed for that. Spike in Pembrokeshire. Great point. Huey says, this is sort of turned into a personal hygiene programme. Huey says, "I wear vinyl gloves every time I go out, Ian, and change them regularly." I don't think he's joking. I know the things you mean. You can hardly, they're invisible, as opposed to what I wear, which is a pair of yellow marigolds. You get a few looks on the train, but boy, do I go home with clean hands, you see. I'm having the last laugh on this one. How far do you go with, the hand washing thing during COVID? Do you remember we all got kind of like bad, dry skin, and then it began to crack if you just didn't have skin that was susceptible or used to or even liked being washed 25 times a day. Thank you for that. Dan in Kent, forget the flipping mask. Let's get back to playing in the mud again, eating food that's been on the floor, and most importantly, wash your hands. It's not hard. Yeah, go through bins and munch away on a discarded chicken piece. Love it, Dan. Thank you very much for that. Lots still to come in the next section. 03444991000. You can message 87222. Don't forget the voice of doom. It's a brand new one. Very simple question. Who is this?
A cruel and punishing night.
87222 if you think you know. Only if we get a correct answer, we will tell you who it is on the other side of the news at 3 o'clock. You're listening to Talk. Let's get the headlines now at the top of the hour.
across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
And good afternoon. Yes, welcome back. There's many things we're talking about here, of course. Flu season. Yes, there's flu season out there. It's causing havoc with the NHS, and at the moment we've got situations where people are being treated in cupboards. Welcome to the 21st century. There are now warnings. This is the last chance to get protected before Christmas, and Wes Streeting is talking about this clash of doctors going on strike and the super flu, which could crash the National Health Service. Are we looking at more lockdowns again? Please don't tell us we're going to do that. And we've got the face masks. Remember these little bad boys? Yeah, you thought you'd seen the last of those? They could be back. Your thoughts on that? Also this afternoon, we're talking about the issues around migration and 13 people caught in the back of a lorry on the M40. What was interesting about this is that it closed 2 lanes, 5 miles of tailback, 4 hours of chaos, and the driver gets arrested as well. Did he know there was anyone in the back of the truck? If he did, he's in real trouble. If he didn't, he's still in real trouble. That's how the law seems to work. And Kyiv is weighing up a dramatic peace gambit, pulling back from the Donbass to create a demilitarized zone if Russia matches the move. Zelensky says Trump is pushing a free economic zone between opposing forces. We'll look at that story in more detail in just 1 second. If you want to get in touch, 0344 499 1000. And if you message in 87222. We're delighted to be joined by Kira Riddick, who is from the People's Deputy of Ukraine. Good afternoon to you, Kira. Nice to see you. I was about to say you flew in, but you can't fly in from Ukraine. That avenue is well and truly closed off at the moment.
Hi, Ian, and thank you so much for having me.
Pleasure.
Well, you have to drive or to take train to the closest neighboring country. For me, it was Warsaw, and this is how the reality looks for so many people in Ukraine. Same with the energy outages. When I was leaving Kyiv, we only had electricity for 4 or 5 hours a day, and water outages, and things are not getting better. We are under attack, and we just started winter, and the weather is much worse than here in London.
Yeah.
So, of course, the situation is really hard for people, really hard for the army. However, the situation is that we are not gonna capitulate.
Yeah.
That's for sure.
Because whatever way one looks at this, the deal that appears to be on the table, if that's the right way to put it, involves capitulation, right? I mean, it literally is somebody came in, they took a chunk of our country, and the deal is, we'll let you have it.
Absolutely, and this is unfair. This is not the way how it should be. That diminishes and actually absolutely says that all the people who have put their lives did it for what? So there are so many questions that are not answered, but coming back to the deal, like, is it even a workable deal? We are talking as we imagine that President Trump has it agreed with Putin, but actually nothing confirms that. As of right now, President Trump was not able to get Putin to agree to anything, even to a thing like a ceasefire.
Sure.
So we even don't know if we agree to certain things, would that be workable? Would that stop the killings? And there is no confirmation to that. Perhaps this is something that President Trump tries to get together and then to hear from Putin that he wants more. This is the question. And again, everybody's dancing around where Ukraine is ready to pull back from, what would be the free economic zone or something else, which is actually useless before you have an answer to a very important question. What are the security guarantees? Who or what will make sure that Putin will keep his part of the bargain? Because we are not talking like from our ideas, we are talking from the experience.
Yeah.
We have been in those
ceasefires
since 2014, when Russia was agreeing to something and then just changing their mind.
What does security look like? Is it only NATO? Is that the the red line, or are there other options beyond NATO? Because that, of course, is a problem for Putin.
Well, NATO is the goal. Well, let me ask you this. If NATO wouldn't take Ukraine in because it's a problem for Putin, why would NATO as an alliance allow somebody from outside the alliance tell who can get in and out? I thought in NATO it was written really clearly that only NATO members decide who is in and who is out.
Sure.
But that's like a different story. The security guarantees need to be executable because we need to have a real protection. And I would say, does anybody think that NATO is a real protection right now? I think there are many questions about that. So the real protection would mean ratified in the parliament's agreement to protect Ukraine's sky, agreement to build weapons together, and agreement to provide financing for the build-up of those weapons. I think that would be crucial. And of course, we are talking about potentially some boots on the ground, and I do not see anywhere an appetite for that just yet.
And that's been talked about in the last 24 hours, of course. I think Mark Rutte has raised that issue of, European countries and others being kind of ready. That's not something you would want. Most European countries wouldn't want that to happen, but of course those countries are financing most of what is happening in this war at the moment. Is it more money that is needed? Is it more weaponry? Is it more dialogue?
Well, we have seen that dialogue didn't get us anywhere. Ukraine, since President Trump's administration, has agreed to anything that he offered. We basically went and did everything by the book. So we had agreed to a ceasefire, to President Zelensky meeting Putin, to looking at every agreement, even if it didn't have a security guarantee, but it didn't let us anywhere.
Sure.
So now we should be talking about more air defense systems. We should be talking about more financing, and it should not come out of the pockets of the taxpayers here or in Europe. It should come from the Russian assets that are being frozen right now. And this is why one of the things that's being discussed very heavily, what to do with them. President Trump is trying to use it in his negotiations. Putin obviously wants them back, and Europe needs to go ahead and confiscate them. And we are talking about huge amounts. We are talking about 8 billion pounds here in the United Kingdom, and we are talking about 200 billions of euros in European Union. And to pull it away from all the negotiations, to make sure that Europe is controlling that, there needs to be a solution on how to confiscate them and go ahead, use them for the security.
Do you think Donald Trump is looking for an easy life? Is that ultimately what this is? He's I don't believe he talks about, what 1 minute Putin is his friend, the next minute he's saying this man let me down. Zelensky has had similar kind of contradictory treatment. One day he's getting an absolute pounding in the Oval Office, and then the next day it's all handshakes and breaking bread and having a drink together. It's hard to sort of judge where Trump's at. My only assessment is that he just wants this thing gone away and hasn't really sort of this idea of giving up land. It is an absolute no-no. Not a square foot of land would go into the hands of Putin under the Ukrainian parliament.
Absolutely.
Is that unanimous in your parliament? Is there any party there that thinks otherwise?
I do not think so. I didn't hear them saying that, not publicly, not privately. Everybody understands that this is a matter of our survival, physical survival of our country, because Russia is using this strategy, and they're very open about it, that they call it a salami technique. They take piece by piece, they negotiate, they push forward, and this is how they have taken our Crimea and then Eastern territories, and they are just moving forward. And right now we do not see a proper way of stopping them except of fighting them, and this is what we do.
And there is, so it's a kind of stalemate situation. There's no magic kind of sort of plan waiting in the wings that Putin would go, that would work, because of course in his own country he doesn't want to lose face. He needs to come out victorious. He needs to look as if he was a man that made the right decision back over 10 years ago and came out with more than he went in. They're his own red lines, one would assume.
Ian, he has added 4 of our regions into his constitution. Even right now, when there is negotiations about some land concessions, we are talking about only 1 region. can anybody answer what would happen with the other three? Like, is he going to remove them from his constitution? Is he going to give up? So Ukraine's existence is already a failure for Putin. And unfortunately, I do not see any way that like everybody will be satisfied in this. Especially that everybody's talking about the deals and nobody is talking about the justice anymore. Russians have committed all kinds of the war crimes. There are so many families in Ukraine who have lost their loved ones, who were raped, who were tortured, and we want to know that there would be a Nuremberg tribunal at some point for them. And we do not see anybody discussing that anymore, and this is very important.
Does anything change if the Ukrainian leadership changes? There's always controversy about that. Mr. Zelensky talked about elections, but changing the rules so that there could be elections. Does it need a new president? Would that make a difference?
I don't think that we can bite and chew the elections right now. The country will just simply collapse. And let me tell you this, if you go out on the streets of Ukraine right now and start talking about elections, people will ask you, like, what are you talking about? We are without electricity, we are without water, and you are spending money on the elections? That would be the first question. The second question would be how to allow military to participate in the elections, to vote, and also to be voted for. We have millions of people outside the country. And then we come back to the main question is, what are the security guarantees for those elections if they will be there? Well, of course, it will be very hard to do them because according to our constitution, there should be no elections during the wartime. So I think that was an attempt by President Zelensky to tell President Trump that if he ensures the security, then we can think about it. But I do not see anybody coming up, stepping up and saying, yeah, this is the security guarantee that we will provide, just do the elections.
Sure. So Zelensky is the best person to be running Ukraine right now?
Well, I'm an opposition party leader.
Of course, yeah.
I cannot
as I asked that question, I could see your face kind of wrestle with that dilemma.
Yes, of course, he has his flaws. But I think right now, at this time in history, we have the president, and we cannot, accordingly to the law, elect another one. So he has to do the job that he was elected for, and we'll be around supporting him and our country to go through the toughest time, the darkest hour.
Do you think, I mean, when you look at Russia, and this is, undoubtedly an incursion, a subjugation of another sovereign country, but curiously, if you look around the world, there are other countries that are allies of Russia that oddly support Putin on this. I mean, no surprise the Chinese may well have that position. They are no better, frankly, in the sense of, what is democratic. But does Ukraine need to kind of spread its wings a little? Does it need more allied support outside of the US, outside of the EU?
Of course, we would appreciate more support, but we are working with different countries, and Russia is also investing a lot into proving that they are right, and their alliance with China is very strong. I think it's a mistake by the United States to hope that they can pull Russia away from China. I think they're integrated in a very strong way right now, and that's not going to change anytime soon. But of course, Ukraine would be happy to have more support around the world, though there are many people, and I appreciate that, obviously, who are supporting us and standing with us. Of course.
So, but the brutal reality of everything here, just to go back to where we started, is this, based on everything you're saying and others, this is the war that cannot end. There's no way around this one, is there? Unless Putin wasn't around and some slightly more liberal Russian leader came into office, there's no answer to this.
I'm sure in 1944, our ancestors thought the same way, right? And then the United States got into the war, and then allies got together and started fighting. And I'm here in Britain where the decision was made by your Prime Minister to go and fight. And this is what we are doing. So it's not lost until everything is lost.
But you would need the Americans on that as well, wouldn't you?
We would need everyone on that. And this is what we are saying.
Donald Trump's not going to fight.
We are only 1 year into his presidency. We have survived wars, and we will continue working with our allies, figuring out what are the ways from this. I refuse a accepting that this is the end for my country. I refuse accepting that this is a lost cause. And I'm sure many people in Ukraine refuse that as well. And they are fighting every single day. So for this, we need to find new technology. We need to find confiscating of Russian assets and probably investing them into something that could help. We are just refusing to give up.
Finally, what does winter look like for the average Ukrainian? I know it depends largely on where you live. There are areas where, sometimes social media, never the best place to go for reality sometimes, but you will see an image of Ukraine and everything looks rather peaceful and life is carrying on as normal. There's a shopping centre, someone's having a coffee, and, we've all seen that. But broadly speaking, for the average Ukrainian, it gets cold at this time of year. You talked about electricity and water. What are they facing?
So during the day, you will try to pretend that things are okay, and the only thing that's different is that there are energy outages here and there. And then the night comes, and then you go to the bomb shelter, hoping that your devices are charged, and hoping that the bomb shelter is heated. And then after the bombardment, you're waiting with your family and hoping that the electricity will go back again. Then you are receiving messages from the front line, hoping that your loved ones are okay and they have survived the night as well. You just looking around and calling your loved ones, and especially the elderly, that they have heating in their homes and that they will be able to physically survive the winter. That's the reality on the ground. And then you go to the coffee shop and get a cup of coffee and say, well, we survived yet another day, and we will figure out a way to support our army, to thank our partners, and continue for the country to run.
Well, look, everybody prays for a peaceful end to this, and nobody wants to see anybody else losing their lives. There's been too much of that. We will speak again, Kira. Lovely to have you with us.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming on. That is Kira Rudik, who is a member of the Ukrainian Parliament, the Holos Party, isn't it? Your party, yes. Of which she leads. Back to you in a couple of moments. This is Talk.
This is from the migrant camps in Dunkirk.
It's a lot deeper and darker.
The French police are complicit every step of the way.
And that was when I heard the gunfire. You need to get out of here quick. They do not care about human life. They are dangerous people.
For 2 weeks, Talk was undercover in those camps. This is an absolute scandal.
Across the UK. On DAB+. On YouTube. On your mobile. And on your side. This is Talk.
Talk at Christmas, 22 minutes after 3 o'clock. Brian in Sheffield says, we've become a bit of a health and safety beacon here today on the etiquette of sneezing. It's got these old mask things, and that's how this conversation started. Anyway, Brian says, reference sneezing in public. I remember a very uncomfortable flight to Tenerife about 15 years ago. We just boarded, and I had one hand on the overhead locker handle and the other on my bag, still by my side. Just at the second, I had a sneeze like a hurricane, straight onto the bald-headed bloke sat in front of me. I spent the next 4 hours apologising. Oh, man, that's awful, isn't it? Love it. Brian, thank you very much indeed. I can only imagine the dilemma. Don't go away, David. Andrew is in Hertfordshire. What have you got for us, Andrew? Afternoon.
Good afternoon, top man. Yeah, there's an amazing book called First to Fight by Roger Morehouse. I'd urge everybody to buy it and read it. It's the story of how the Polish War 1939 started. Yep. And it replicates what's going on here. You said some good stuff. That woman's inspirational. Putin signed an agreement with Obama in relation to Crimea, and he's reneged on it. Yeah. Why does anybody think that anything he signs he's going to stick to? Yeah. And we all know somebody I know that their child works for a defence manufacturer, and they've licensed and they are completely transferring technology and assets to Poland because the Polish people and the Polish government know they're next. The only way round this is to confront Putin with a no-fly zone over Ukraine, give him the missiles he needs to strike into Russia, and then drag that Orban from Hungary into the ambassador's office in the UK and expel the Hungarian Prime Minister. Starmer needs to act like a leader, because if he doesn't, we're all down the gulag. And people like you and I, the future is a salt mine.
Yeah. So bringing Hungary into it because of their position, fire the ambassador, did you say?
Yeah, no, just expel him, because Hungary is siding with Putin. Yeah. And if you want to know why we're in this mess, we're in this mess because we sent a real estate agent, Kirsty Allsop or Phil, to negotiate something that only someone with the brain of Henry Kissinger or Malcolm Rifkin could begin to understand. And this is what you get. Yeah. And we've got to say to Trump, right, you're in the Five Eyes, you're now Putin's friend, you're not Europe's friend, so you're out. It's Four Eyes now, and we're not sharing any intelligence with America.
What is his... I mean, is this a case of... I said it to the member of Parliament there. Is it a case of Trump just wants it done and he doesn't, frankly, give a toss how it's done as long as it stops? Is it that, or does he believe there is something so fundamentally and game-changingly valuable to be done in a relationship with Russia that it's worth... that line is worth pursuing? Because I don't, Russia's got an economy about the size of California. It's not an economic powerhouse. It might have big weapons that could do horrible damage, but it punches above its weight most of the time, of course.
Yeah. Other than the oil, and a lot of the manufacturing comes out of Ukraine, it's about 40 to 60%. But we don't know about Trump. We know he went to Russia when he had no money, and the German banks, Deutsche Bank, wouldn't lend him any money. He saw the Russian finances. So the reason, until he opens the books on his business, which he refuses to do, Putin holds the markers on the loan that keeps Trump's business going. And that he can't afford to come out. Until he does that, he's compromised. And we should tell him that and stop sharing stuff with him. Put him under pressure. Because at the moment, he is playing, I've got the new ping driver, I can hit it further than you, Putin. He's just in an ego. Why is he attacking Venezuela? Come on. What's he going to do? confront the Isle of Wight now and invade that?
Yeah, it's all a bit bizarre, the Venezuelan thing, and this kind of... There's a lot of ambiguity about this, you know, Venezuela peddling drugs into North America. And today, as I'm sure you know, Andrew, you know, President Putin is calling the Venezuelan leader saying, oh, we've got your backs, mate, don't worry. And you think, well, where does that leave Trump and Putin?
Because Trump wants to show I'm big and rough and tough. He's got China saying, we're going into Taiwan when it suits us. We've got Putin at war. So Trump is walking around going, do you know what? I've only got a wooden golf club. They've all got titanium. What can I do? I know. I'll take on someone that can't hurt us. Venezuela. Yeah. I mean, really.
That's where we're at. Andrew, great call as well. Thank you very much indeed for that. David in Exeter on that issue of defence. What are you thinking, David? Afternoon to you.
Good afternoon. Well, thumbs up to your previous caller, Andrew. Yeah. The critical bit now, really, I think it's got to a sort of watershed, hasn't it? You know, a lot of the wide awake in Whitehall were calling for Britain to go onto a war footing, you know, some 2 years ago, but they were not listened to. So, I mean, the story really is why Starmer is refusing to do so, because it's very clear what's happening here. So the key bits are, without American command and control support for NATO in Europe, we're a bit wide open. You know, it's a serious situation because they're the glue that puts it all together, that makes it operate. So without them, and it's looking like from the rhetoric and the chatter from a lot of the political leaders in Europe that they're sort of seeing it now as, you know, we can't and will not rely on what Trump's going to do or not do. We're going to have to paddle our own canoe. Now, the difficulty is, Kev, if you think of our own defence condition nationally in the UK, OK, we're part of a patchwork of bilateral and multilateral defence agreements in Europe. And the key multilats are France and Germany, E3 that we're in. Now, when Germany, which I think will go very quickly to a war footing, and France will follow, they've already sort of said, you know, they've had their general out under Macron's orders to say, you know, you're going to have to be prepared to spill French blood. Yeah. And Andrew saying previously, no, Poland's more or less on a war footing now. So it's a fait accompli that we will have to. The story is why Starmer won't, because the asymmetric attacks and the hybrid warfare attacks are going to escalate because he's just been given the green light. It's going to be like, all, you know, push on. But the problem, of course, is Putin can sit behind his nuclear shield. Yeah. This is something General Patrick Saunders is highlighting, you know, and a lot of the old military and ex-military officers are doing. You know, the in-service ones can't speak. They're not allowed to because they know they're on a war footing. But my worry with this is the public in Britain ready for the truth? Can they put that shield of the truth on as armour and just know what the score is? Because we're hurtling towards it.
Tell me this, David.
Sorry, it's hurtling towards us, rather.
Yeah. Just a final point. I know we've got to be slightly brief, but I've talked about this before. You'll be aware of this Putin fanboy syndrome that is out there. There's groups of people, and I'm sure if we look through all of our Twitter comments in the last 15 minutes or our X comments, we will find people who are very much on the kind of Russian side of this. Now, I can't work that out. I don't know many people who follow even the surface level of current affairs who can work that out. I certainly don't know many politicians who can work that out. Where do you think that comes from? What do you think those people that have that belief... I can appreciate people might not like Zelensky personally. There's a lot about his background that might not be desirable, although, you know, frankly, in terms of global leaders of our times, I don't think he stands in any more undesirable position than many others. What is it with the I'm with Russia? Where does that come from?
They've invested very heavily in technology and capabilities to exacerbate and fish bait and hook anybody digitally, because they can reach into our civilian population with the tooling they've got through the internet. So what you find is, let's say you and me and Joe Bloggs and Rod, Jane and Freddie down the road are not happy with Rishi Sunak, or we're not happy with Keir Starmer, right? What we end up falling into is, well, they're bad, therefore Putin's good. So you end up in a digital sort of arena with the group, and I've seen a lot of this. It's very, you know, it's subtle but sophisticated at the same time. Their capabilities to fish bait and hook people in. Yep. You go on a bit of a journey. I mean, the subject matter could be Pakistani rape gangs, Magna Carta, whatever, you know, and you get involved with this stuff, and before you know it, you're flipped and you're not framing reality correctly. Now, if you remember from your Soviet manuals, the biggest thing, and obviously it was something that Hermann Goering pointed out at Nuremberg, wasn't it? Is once we reframe reality and got the public, no longer able to frame reality correctly and were afraid, we could do anything. And this is where we are with this. But our government, a bit like the borders and national security, and I've said this to you many, many times, what national security? There isn't any. It's an illusion. Have left this sort of gaping gap where they've been able to play in this area. And a lot of our public, they're not happy with Rishi Sunak, they're not happy with Starmer, and have fell into the trap of thinking Putin's good. It was just not like that.
So you're right. It's kind of... It's
okay, we'll have... You and me have got grievances. We're not happy. But I'm going to conclude with this, Kev, that
Ian,
really we're in a situation now where key people like Jonathan Powell, Chris Wormald, Cabinet Secretary, Jeremy Pocklington at the MOD, these sorts of people, they've got to be so good on their game. And I'm going to say, are they clever? Submit it as a question. Are they cleverer than Putin? Because these are the key officers. I don't have any problems with Gwyn Jenkins, First Sea Lord, and the military staff. What I have a problem with is the key drivers in our government, the civil service, the top civil servants, particularly Powell and Jeremy Pocklington and Antonio Romeo at the Home Office, because a lot of this will fall within her envelope.
Yeah.
Are they cleverer than Putin?
Are they cleverer than Putin? On that point, David, love it. Thank you very much indeed. You've been talking to Ian, by the way, not Kev. I just thought I'd raise that again. David, thank you very much indeed for your call. A little bit of breaking news on Jeffrey Epstein. There's been around about something like 90,000 documents / photographs have been released. The latest drop has been made by the Democrats on the House Oversight Committee, which obtained them from the Epstein estate. Redactions have been made before their release. It all comes ahead of the US government's deadline to share all of the material by next Friday. The Oversight Committee have just released these latest photographs, 19 more photographs from the estate of the late convicted sex offender, US President Donald Trump, Bill Gates, former Prince Andrew Mountbatten Windsor are among those pictured. Doesn't mean there was any wrongdoing because they're in the picture. Back when this stuff was taken, this was the bloke's headquarters and he was one of the most sought after men to dine with. You have to give that context. No suggestion they imply any wrongdoing, but for many, of course, they will be obviously embarrassing. We'll have details on that as it breaks. 0344 499 1000.
across the UK. On DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
It is Talk, 0344 499 1000. Britain will have to rethink its ban on the sale of diesel and petrol vehicles. We've heard this headline a couple of times throughout the course of the last couple of weeks. Senior industry figures say the ban will inevitably be delayed after the EU signalled a climb down. This casts doubt, of course, on Ed Miliband's whole policy around this area. Let's speak with Chris Heron, Secretary-General of E-Mobility Europe Trade Association, uniting e-mobility in the ecosystem of Europe. Good afternoon to you, Chris. Nice to have you with us. What are you initially making of these headlines that are whirling around? Is there truth in them? And if there isn't, should there be?
Well, look, next Tuesday, we do expect the European Commission will announce a weakening of the goal it's set for 2035 for zero-emission car sales. We have to look at what the details of that weakening are. On the one hand, the head of the European Commission has been very clear that the future for Europe is electric with its transport sector. On the other hand, she faces extreme pressure from the centre-right parties, especially from countries like Germany, to introduce new allowances on plug-in hybrids, new fuels, and others. We'll be looking to try and ensure and see that a clear investment signal is kept towards electrification, because our businesses need that to build battery gigafactories, install charging stations, and upgrade their grids.
So it's more about it's about clarifying the current uncertainty. Is that what's key to what you guys are looking for?
We want the certainty to be kept. We're worried that a dilution of the goals will remove the clarity we have as Europe. We'd be worried if that clarity is lost in the UK as well. If we hesitate, other parts of the world step further ahead. China isn't waiting for anyone.
In terms of this country, Ed Miliband, I think they talk 2030 rather than 2035. So where does that, is that still realistic? Do you sense that our government might move towards the EU's target, which may also move in itself as well?
Let's see what the details look like next week. I think it's a mistake to step back right now from the electric vehicle trajectory the UK set or Europe has set. Across the continent, we're breaking records for electric vehicle sales this year. Actually, Europe has the highest EV growth of any mass market across the world, including China. Taking the wind out of those sales right now can be very damaging. It's really critical in the next 5 years that we scale up this ecosystem so we're ready to support our automakers from 2035 onwards. I hope the UK wouldn't follow the EU's lead if it does weaken things.
But of course, it's not just about the transportation that's got to be electric to complete the picture or the puzzle, if you like. Everything else would have to be non-fossil fuel related. I mean, could we seriously power every electric vehicle with windmills?
We're confident the power won't be the challenge or the bottleneck. Already, EVs are by far the cleanest option across Europe, even when powered by coal-powered grids. The rollout of charging across the continent is going very well. We now have over 1 million charging points ready for electric cars across the continent. When the vehicles are there, we're scaling up. We need to do that with a unified force. The biggest risk to the power sector not being ready is losing that clarity for 2035. That's what they're relying on to make these long-term grid upgrades to make sure they're ready.
Yeah, I do understand clarity. I think, the industry and commerce is scuppered without at least a direction of travel. It needs to know where it's going. From a consumer perspective, there is a different argument bubbling away, of course, and that is, well, let it happen organically, Chris. I mean, it might take a little bit longer. We don't need to worry about Sadiq Khan's ULEZ cameras and all manner of artificially made deadlines. It's going to happen naturally anyway. It's probably cheaper now to get an electric car, certainly a new one, cheaper to run it. So it'll become a no-brainer, and the market will naturally get to the very conclusion you're looking to get it to. But it won't be able to do that if you force it.
The market will get electric, there's no doubt about that. What's not certain today is who's going to build that market. Our big worry is that China's ahead in key areas today in terms of its software, in terms of its supply chain. Europe being behind in that race, if we don't speed up, if we don't strengthen ourselves, we're in a difficult position. When you're in that race, the wrong thing to do is to slow down. I don't think this goal is about forcing things upon people. It's about preparing to be ready for the reality in a decade's time.
Good work, Chris. Lovely to have you on, sir. Thank you very much indeed.
Pleasure to be here.
Chris
Thank you.
Heron, General Secretary of E-Mobility Europe. I was looking at some numbers on electric cars. We're now seeing I've never had one, by the way. I know lots of people who have. We're now seeing the emergence of a reasonable second-hand electric car market, because for ages there wasn't one. By definition, these things were new. We're now getting them. And I still come back. I think the biggest fear over these is that we don't know as consumers how to assess an electric car. And it sounds very Route 1, and I'm sure some people might be chucking their electric charger at the radio listening to this, but when you go and buy a car, an ordinary petrol or diesel car, we're kind of familiar with the nuts and bolts, quite literally, of how the thing, if it's done X amount of miles, if it's done 60,000 miles and it's an old Fiesta that's 15 years old, you might think, that's probably not something I want to buy, because I can work that out. It's a Fiesta, firstly. I know the capability of one of those. It's a smaller car, but it's a very old car, and it's got, low mileage for the age, but overall it's got... You do that equation in your head. That's just the obvious stuff. If you went and bought an electric car, I could not tell you, genuinely, whether I was buying a bargain or not. If I went for a second-hand, 3 years old electric car and they said it's got 50,000 miles on the clock, I don't know what that means. If I buy a 3-year-old Volvo that's got 60,000 miles on the clock, I'm all right with that, because hang on, 50,000 miles a few years ago would have been a bit grim, but today, that's fine. I don't know whether that's fine with an electric car. Is it more fine than the other version, than the petrol version? Is it less fine than the petrol? We simply don't have that kind of frame in our head. If you're buying brand new, you've got a bit of a head start on that, because you are slightly, as the consumer, you're slightly satisfied that it's brand new, so assuming there's no factory malfunction, this thing should work. Or you haven't bought some iffy model out of China or something, with very few places you can go and get it repaired, or to order the parts. It might take you, 28 years to get some brake pads to arrive. Beyond all of that, you'd be a bit more satisfied. But the second-hand market, I'm not sure. I constantly told it is now more or less like for like, cheaper to buy an electric car and certainly cheaper to run it. Do you concur with that? Alex is in Belfast. Alex, what have you got for us? Back to that issue of defence.
Yes, they're talking about war with Putin. It's coming.
Yeah.
And many of them are going to send their sons and daughters, because I'll not be sending mine. Yeah. We owe Europe nothing. They are no friends of ours. We have lost enough treasure and people over the head of these Europeans. We owe them nothing. I think just pull out, leave them till it, especially for a government.
Is that a case then, if we extended that, Alex, do we not have to then go, well, we don't have any commonality with other European countries, and if Putin wants to go in, he can. If he wants to expand further into Ukraine, he can. We don't care. Russia gets bigger, he then goes for another country because it's nothing to do with us. Where do we, at what point, because I tend to, there's a bit of me that wants to agree with what you've just said. How much more money can we put into this? How much more death and destruction? Do we want to put our kids into this position? But is the alternative even worse?
No, when it comes to our shore, that's when we said it. We've fought so many wars over Europe. We've lost millions of people, countless treasure over the head of them, 2 world wars, and the way they treat us over our border, and the small boats. Yeah.
I hear you. But my fear is that would it create a bigger problem than the one we think it might solve if we just said, sorry, love you to bits, guys, but we cannot be involved in this anymore?
No, let them at it. Just let them at it. You have a government in Ukraine that has enriched themselves you know, and we want to send our sons and daughters to fight for that.
When you say enrich themselves, how do you mean?
Enrich themselves financially.
Well, I mean, they've grown as a country, you know, the Cold War ended and all that goes with it, but they were invaded. We all agree on that, don't we?
Yeah. What was Zelensky worth before this war started, and what's he worth now?
Well, I keep hearing everything from £5 to £5 trillion, depending on who you read, but I'm sure he's not going to starve.
Yeah, I watched the documentary about him, and he was worth 900 million, and him and his...
Zelensky is worth 900 million.
900 million.
He's almost a billionaire.
Yep. And
what's the source of that?
It was, I can't actually remember the source, but and they've all bought chalets in France. There was an investigation in France.
Right. Well, that'd be interesting to pursue as a completely separate subject. Interesting stuff.
Yeah.
Listen, Alex, I've got to move because we've hit the clock, but thank you for that. That's Alex in Belfast. Clearly, I'll put him down as an undecided when it comes to, is he a fan of Zelensky? 0344 499 1000. Is Zelensky really worth just shy of $1 billion? Wow. I mean, I think that would be extraordinary, but I have no evidence to the contrary. Thoughts on that as well. 0344 499 1000.
This is from the migrant camps in Dunkirk.
It's a lot deeper and darker.
The French police are complicit every step of the way.
And that was when I heard the gunfire. You need to get out of here quick. They do not care about human life. They are dangerous people.
For 2 weeks, talk was undercover in those camps. This is an absolute scandal.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
This is Talk. 0344 499 1000. John says an electric vehicle is not cheaper to run compared to a fuel car if policy is taken into account. About 80% of the cost of motor fuel is duty and VAT. That's the only reason why electric looks cheaper. charging them was my point. If you're charging them domestically at home and you're able to do that, isn't that, I'm told, maybe that has changed a whole lot since energy bills started to go up. So I stand to be corrected, but that was the last stat I heard from somebody, that the sale price is cheaper and charging is cheaper than petrol. I guess it depends on what you have and how often you use it, ultimately. Rick says, Rick's in Lincolnshire, says, I cannot have an electric car due to living up a passageway and no ability to charge it. And I think that's going to be, I don't know, what's the answer to that? What's the official answer? If you've got an electric car and you live in a block of flats, if you've got an electric... I know you also haven't got a petrol station at the end of your block of flats either, so you charge it elsewhere. Like you fill your car elsewhere. So not everybody has a personal charger, but of course when you start getting into charging motorway services and the like, you pay full whack, and I know that definitely is more expensive than fuel. Tony's in Doncaster. On the issue of Ukraine, Tony, what have you got for us?
Yeah, just a few points. Yeah. I honestly think we shouldn't be helping Ukraine at all. I am no fan of Putin. I do think he's a dictator, but I think the Ukraine government is equally corrupt. You only have to look that this war's not been really going on 2 years. It's probably been going on about 15 years.
Yeah.
A couple of issues. When they invaded a couple of years ago, they took the Donbass straight away without any fighting, because it's estimated, and if I'm wrong, I apologise, that roughly 90% of the people in that area are pro-Russian and they see themselves as Russians.
I certainly hear they are Russian-speaking. I hear that figure a lot, so go on.
But here's a few issues on it. You asked the question to the gentleman, well, what do we do? Do we stand back and would you let me invade the rest of Europe? No. We signed up for NATO. We put into the subscription for NATO. So as far as I'm concerned, if Putin invaded any NATO country, that's when the line is crossed. Ukraine is not part of NATO. And as Nigel Farage said, this issue kicked off because we started flirting with the idea of Ukraine joining NATO. And his words were, we've picked a fight with a bear. And we're just sending money and money and money, and it's killing Ukraine soldiers, it's killing Russian soldiers, and it's an endless war.
I said that to the MP that was sitting in here half an hour ago. It is an endless war. What is the answer then, Tony?
The answer is to give the Donbass area, because at the end of the day, that area has changed sides 4 times in 100 years. It flips and it changes all the time. Look, I don't agree with what it is, but sometimes you've got to cut your losses. You can't just keep on putting money into a war. Ukraine cannot win this war. That is a fact. OK,
so you give away a bit of Donbass, and then do you allow Ukraine into NATO?
Do you know what? I don't know. But if you start with a peace breaking to start with, that's the first thing. Yeah.
Because in fairness to Ukraine, they would have to have some kind of security guarantee.
100%. But here's the last question on it. If people say, we should keep supporting Ukraine, here's the last question I'll leave. Do you think if we'd have been invaded by France, do you think all these Ukrainian people would have been signed and sending us money? Not in your life.
Well, an interesting point to finish on, Tony. Thank you very much indeed for that. I think we can put in an extra call just before we head to the news on flu, which is where we started. Steve in Sheffield. Fire away, Steve. What have you got for us?
Hi, Ian.
Hiya.
I've been trying to get a flu vaccination and a COVID vaccination together for the last 5 days.
Right.
Which I've been booking on the NHS app.
Right. They tell us you can almost just go down the corner of the street and get one.
No. I've just been to 7 different pharmacies this week, and every one of them have said, we haven't got any, we don't see getting any in the foreseeable future.
Wow! So flu or COVID?
Flu or COVID. The last one I went to, right, this is in North East Derbyshire, South Yorkshire.
Yes.
And the last one I went to, the guy said, not a chance. There isn't any in the UK. We simply cannot get them anymore.
That's insane. I had no idea. But listen, Steve, I've got to move, but thank you. That's interesting information. Is that just Sheffield? Is it anywhere else? I don't have flu jabs or COVID jabs, so I genuinely don't know of my own neck of the woods. But here's our own jabber. That is Alex Phillips.
Jabba the Hutt.
Have you tried?
Thanks, Ian.
I meant it in a nice way. I don't know. Do you do the flu jab thing?
Do you know what? So I have never done the flu jab, but I had the world's worst flu at the start of this year. I got it at inauguration in America, and it left me ill for the whole year. I had
not quite man flu, but I get the point.
No, I had vestibular neuritis. I had to go to A&E. I couldn't even stand up vertigo. I couldn't lie down. It was like being drunken straight off the waltzers.
Yeah, the waltzers.
It's like an infection of the nerve that goes in your eye and your ear.
Yeah.
Oh, it's horrible, that thing. Then I got shingles all over my face twice. Had to go to A&E twice, and that all came from a monster flu at the start of the year. So it is to be taken seriously.
It is to be taken seriously. But he was just saying he can't get a flu jab. He's walked into 7 pharmacists and they've said, no,
we haven't got it.
We haven't got it. There's none in the UK, one guy told him.
Really?
I'm not sure that's... I think we'd be hearing
about
that,
get it.
Yeah.
The thing is, normally when you have the flu jab, I remember when I was in the European Parliament and it's sort of offered to MEPs, you can go down to the medical centre and get one. But normally it's a bit of a guess. Oh, we're going to make this flu jab for H2N5, and then it turns out it's H5N1 or something, that bird flu, I don't know. But it's a bit of a guess what the seasonal flu is going to be.
That's very true.
But then this year we seem to know what it is, and it's not nice.
Well, also, I know it's not nice, and I haven't got some kind of anti-vax thing going on. I just have never had the flu jab. Had the letter come round to the kids at school, do you want your kid to have a flu jab? No, I said, they don't need to have a flu jab.
With this one, I'm not sort of, when it comes to COVID jabs, that's a whole new world. There's been a story today in the papers about the link to myocarditis. Today, a research paper from Stanford University. So that's the RNA vaccine is a completely different thing. It's very hard to vaccinate against a virus, first of all, rather than something bacterial. But I think if you are vulnerable, a bad flu is not good. It's not the one.
So what's your favourite vaccine is our thing. I mean, the measles was one of my favourites back in the day.
Really?
Loved the measles vaccine. Went back time and time again.
When I had one of my vaccines as a baby, I almost died, so not that one.
Did you?
Yeah, I had to be taken to hospital or be put under fans and stuff.